Howdy y'all, Caleb here. Buckle up, this could be a long one. Today we saw the leak of our entire Battletome. As things tend to happen, these get leaked onto the internet and we get to talk about them and start list building and discussing them before we actually get a chance to get our hands on all these beautiful new models. So it's pretty exciting times. Time to buckle up and start studying. I will have the link to this below if you want to see the pictures, or you can get it when it comes out in the app. So, all right. First off, let's start off with just my first impressions, and then we'll dive into this real deep. But my first impressions, and this is through reading this multiple times, kind of digesting it a little bit. I'm sure these are going to change later on, but I've broken it down into the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think the good is we still have a pretty diverse play style, and the sub-factions kind of play into that, and you can see where the sub-factions are kind of leading you into some different play styles with those units. So I like that. That gives you an idea of kind of what you're supposed to do with that sub-faction. So I think it still has some good stuff there. You'll see the differentiation between the different play styles as we go through all this. Spell casting is still very strong, and we have some good spell lore still. So previously, I felt like the spell lore was a little weak. We had a couple good spells. Now we actually have a spell lore for Starborne and for Coalesced, and so we end up with more spells to choose from. I think that's a good thing, and there's some deep stuff to do with the spell casting in the new book. Kroak is good. I have him listed here. He's a good one. Got cheaper. Still has kind of the same role as before, but I think you'll see Kroak a little bit more at this point cost and with some of the abilities that Kroak has. So I like Kroak in this book. Saurus, I think, are better. The warriors have a role. The guards still kind of do what they do, but they do it a little bit better because they can guard any other heroes. Carnosaurs are a little bit better, but there is some give and take to them. So we finally got some Rend. But I think there is some nice play with the Saurus stuff in Coalesced, and you could probably do some stuff in Starborne. But Coalesced is really where they're going to shine with all the different buffs that they can get. So I think Saurus is in a good place. Raptadons and Aggradons, the new units that they've showed off, I think are... they're not overpowered. They're not like an auto include, but I think you can formulate some lists and play styles that lean into those new units if you like those new units. So I think they have a role in our army. Kroxigor are looking good. They still have some unique play with Skinks, and we'll look at that later, but they definitely have a role in both the Coalesced and the Starborne side. I think they have a role there. I put on here Ripperdactyls, but with a question mark. Are Ripperdactyls good now? I don't think you're going to build a list or a strategy or an army around them, but they are definitely better than they used to be. And they can actually put out a little bit of damage. So it's kind of good to see them maybe see the table again. We'll look at their war scroll a little later. Bad. I think the bad in the new book is I'm seeing some reduced damage output overall. Some of that is coming just from how we can apply abilities to units. Some of it is coming from war scroll changes, but I'm seeing a reduced damage output overall, which is an odd thing because a lot of these books, you'll get them and you'll see these units that can just do a tremendous amount of damage. I haven't seen that yet. It might exist. This is just day one of looking at the Battletome, so there's a lot to get into in this Battletome. But I think on the outlook, the damage has been reduced overall. Skink hordes are dead. Maybe this is one of the reasons. I don't think you'll see skink hordes being taken or even skinks reinforced at all because they have lost some output. They don't get extra attacks. They don't have as much buffs that you can put onto them. And so I think the days of seeing 60 skinks on the board is probably gone unless you're just seeing them as screens. I think they still have value as screens, but you're not going to be doing a ton of shooting with these guys. Buff stacking is gone. Not gone, that was probably the wrong word, but reduced. Previously, we could really throw a lot of buffs onto things, and I'm going to buff up this Stegadon CHief and then shoot it into combat. Or I'm going to buff up these Skinks massively and then shoot them and charge them. I think a lot of that is kind of gone. There's some of that left, but that's not really going to be the play style for Seraphon anymore, it seems like, where you're buffing up one unit to the max and sending it in. So that's a little disappointing. I think I would have liked to see some of that remain. I'm not seeing a whole lot of that right now. Another bad is Thunder Lizard. That subfaction Thunder Lizard I don't think is going to be played as much. Of the three, it may be the weakest. Its abilities just aren't as interesting or useful as the other ones. So that's sad because Thunder Lizard has kind of been the staple. That's definitely the staple for my list building in the past book. But a lot of people have played Thunder Lizard. So I think we may see us going away from Thunder Lizard a little bit. The ugly. These are the things that just stuck out to me as bad, as worse than bad in the book. Starborne Bravery. We no longer get a buff for the Starborne Bravery in that whole faction. So all the Skink stuff that has terrible bravery, and that was why you wouldn't take it in Coalesced, that exists book wide. So that's another reason you're probably not going to take any Skinks, because everything in Starborne is going to run in Battle Shock. So that's a little disappointing. That used to be just an overarching Starborne ability. No mount traits. This one's confusing because we have all these beautiful monsters, but now we don't have any mount traits. We only had one per faction before, but they were very useful. Well, the Coalesced one was very useful, and now we don't have any mount traits at all. So that's odd. Sacred Asterisms are gone. I really enjoyed this in the last book. You could choose between 3 different buffs army-wide or to apply to a specific unit. And that kind of goes into like our buff stacking is gone. This extra casting, the extra movement, or the extra attacks is gone. And that kind of hurts. We have no priests in the game now, or in our army now. So no access to any prayers. The Engine of the Gods I put down as an ugly. That is an odd unit. It's something that used to be a staple in our lists up until now. And the Engine of the Gods I don't think is going to be run all that often. It's no longer a leader. It has a bad cosmic engine mechanic that rewards you for not using it. Just why write those kind of rules? Let us use our model every turn, please. The Stegadon CHief I also have as ugly. Another one of those things that just kind of lost its usefulness, to be honest. You could stack this thing to sky high, and you just can't do that anymore. Now it's basically stuck with its War Scroll attacks, and it doesn't even have its command ability to give extra attacks to a Skink unit anymore. So it's just a slightly better hero Stegadon. So very disappointing. I don't think you'll see the Stegadon CHief all that often. There's just better things now. I did put as an ugly, rest in peace Saurus Knights, Sunblood, the Eternity Warden, Chameleon Skinks, Razordons, and Skink Priest. Those are all units that have effectively been retired now, so they are all gone. We knew some of those were coming. Some of the other ones, like the Sunblood and the Warden, those kind of hurt, not even getting a War Scroll. So you might want to run those guys just as an Oldblood on foot, maybe, if you have that model and want to keep running it. A big, beefy Skink hero on foot. Those are great models. The Knights, understandable. We all have a lot of those painted, though. And Chameleon Skinks are getting replaced by the Hunters of Huanche. Razordons are gone, and Skink Priests are gone. So, all right, that's my initial impressions for the Battletome so far. So let's look at, I think there's a couple different play styles here, and this will probably change and get honed as we really dig into this. But I think Coalesced is really good at standing on the circles, getting on objectives, scoring the game, and trying to outlast the damage being brought in. So Coalesce, we still got that -1 to damage. We can really lean into that with Warriors, I think, and that they can get buffed by contesting an objective. And so we can layer a few buffs onto them, not a whole lot to be honest, but a couple things that can help them out to keep them tougher. But there's also some stuff that we can play into objectives. A Source Hero, we can take an ability that can shut off other units that have wound characteristics of 1 or 2 from contesting objectives. So you got a little bit of play there. Make sure you're capturing those objectives. Make sure the Warriors get on and stay buffed. Stegadons count as 10 on objectives. That's a nice improvement there for the Stegadons. I don't know that you'll be running like Stegageddon anymore, but maybe you throw in an extra Stegadon if you need that monster for a monster's action to help control objectives. It could be a way to go. I would like to see the Stegadons be a little bit cheaper, and then I think they could get played a little bit more, but we'll see. So I think Coalesce side of things has some good abilities to capture objectives and hold on to them. The Starborne has good board control, but it's a little bit different. So it's not so much of contesting those objectives. They won't have quite the staying power that Coalesce has, but they have lots of tricks. They've got extra redeploys, they have deep strikes, they have teleports, and they have summons. So Starborne is good in that area of board control, where Coalesced is more get onto those objectives and hold them. So against certain armies, they'll do well, both different factions, but it may depend. Starborne, I feel like would be excellent in some of the old battle plans where it had more objectives, a bigger board. As the board gets smaller and we get fewer objectives, I think Coalesce may kind of win out on that board control with what they can do. Now, is Coalesce damage reduction and toughness good enough to withstand the high amount of damage in the game right now? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think one thing they can both be good at is spells. You can kit out both factions here to be very good at spell casting. So if you like that, you can still lean into that with both of them, as they both have unique spell lores for Coalesced and Starborne. So that's pretty cool. Lots of spell options to layer on top of things, and to there was some damaging stuff. There's a little bit of buffing. There's a little bit of debuffing. It's kind of an all-around spell lore there. I think you kind of see that with the whole book. It seems fairly balanced on the surface internally. We'll see if that's balanced externally as people get this in their hands and start playing some actual games with it. All right, so let's start taking a look at the actual rules here, and I'll try to timestamp all this so we can follow along and skip past what you already know or what you want to see, because this video might be pretty long. But we're going to start with Starborne here, and you do get to choose between Dracothian's Tail or Fangs of Sotek. So we'll talk about what those different subfactions do here in a minute. We're going to see that a lot of the things in this book, I feel like they have taken what were already on our either war scrolls or abilities for a subfaction, and they've made it to where it's not automatic anymore. Now you have to kind of work for it. And I think you'll see that with these first couple things. Lords of Space and Time. That used to be your teleports. Now it is, at the start of your hero phase, you can carry out one of the following heroic actions with a friendly Starborne Slann. Instead of any other heroic action, you can carry out with that hero. So we've replaced our teleport now with a heroic action. And you'll see these things that you recognize these rules that come up here, but now they're onto this heroic action. So heroic action number 1 is you take a Slann, you can replace one of the spells they know with another one that they know. So we had this before on the Slann. Now this has moved to heroic action, so it's at the beginning of the hero phase. That's actually more useful. So I do like this, because now you can change it over to a spell that you know you need to use in that hero phase. Before, you had to really think ahead to next turn. What spell do I need next turn? And I'm going to change it to that now. So this is a good improvement, but it's no longer automatic. You do have to use a heroic action for it. The other heroic action, this is the one that you're probably going to use the most, is spatial translocation. This is our teleport. pick one friendly Starborne Slann, and then pick one other friendly Starborne unit wholly within 12 of them. Remove that Starborne unit from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units. That unit cannot move in the following movement phase. So here's our teleport. Some important things to note is this: the unit has to start within 12 inches, wholly within 12 inches of your Slann. So you do have to plan this out. You can't just be teleporting things around the board like we used to. You have to have a target for it, and you have to know where it's going, and it has to be close to that Slann. So that's a bad thing. The good thing is that this happens at the start of your hero phase. So that opens up a lot of options. This is, what was it, 2 books ago, we used to be able to teleport in the hero phase, and that opened up a lot of really fun stuff. You could teleport in a Slann, do some goofy stuff with it, and then teleport out. So you can still do that if you wanted to. Teleport in a Slann, then Tunnel Master and back out if you wanted to. But what makes this really interesting, I think, is that you can teleport a Skink wizard with this. So let's say we load this up. We got a Lord Kroak who can cast his spells through a Skink wizard. We have a Skink Starpriest, and then an Astrolith bear. So we teleport the Skink Starpriest forward, keep him in range of Kroak, but now he's effectively moved up, 11 inches away from Kroak, and extended Kroak's range for his spells from, which is on his War Scroll, 12, plus the 6 for the Astrolith, so 18. And now we've got another 11 from the teleport of the Skink Starpriest. So there is some very unique roles that you can use with this teleport other than just teleporting units to score objectives and stuff. So I like that this is in the hero phase because it does have some interesting things. You could teleport a Troglodon 9 inches away from the enemy's front lines and then spam Kroak's spell through the Troglodon. So keep this in mind. This happens in the hero phase, and you can have some interesting things happen because of that. So I like that change in this, but it is a heroic action. You don't get it for free anymore. You do have to spend your heroic action on it. At least there's no dice roll for either one of these, though. Thank you for not giving us a dice roll on that. The next thing is Cosmic Power. Okay, so we've got this Cosmic Power. This is replacing our summoning points. So now we have Cosmic Power points. So you get Cosmic Power. Oh, first off, Cosmic Nodes. That's a new thing that somebody can be. Starborne Wizard, Astrolith Bear, and the Realmshaper Engine are your Cosmic Nodes. A lot of things will proc off of that, just those 3 units. So, but you will receive Cosmic Power points during the battle. You'll begin with 0 Cosmic Power points. At the start of your hero phase, you receive 1 Cosmic Power point for each friendly Starborne Wizard or friendly Starborne Astrolith Bear on the battlefield. In addition, you receive 1 Cosmic Power point each time a friendly Starborne Wizard successfully casts a spell that is not unbound, successfully unbinds a spell, or successfully dispels an endless spell. So that's how you get your summoning points. I like this a lot better than what it previously was, but you're not going to rack up as many points since it's not worth D3 anymore. But it's a little bit more reliable, and it doesn't cost you any spell casting to do it. So, in general, you'll definitely have at least one. You're going to have at least a Slann or Kroak. You're probably going to have an Astrolith Bear in Starborne. And then you'll probably have at least one more wizard. So you're probably starting each hero phase with 3. If you're taking Kroak, you're going to try to cast 4 spells. And then your other wizard will probably try to cast 1 spell. So you have, probably about 8 at your disposal in your hero phase. Now, you're not going to cast every single spell, so some of those will get unbound. So don't bank on 8. But you have a decent amount kind of built in. You'll probably get, 5 or so per turn. Now, you also get some for unbinding spells in the enemy phase. That's important because that means if they go first, you unbind some spells, then in your turn, if you can max that out, you're going to be able to do some fun stuff with the Cosmic Power points. I don't think anything that you spend it on is really overpowered, but it is useful. So, definitely worth doing. There were times when I was playing Starborne previously that I almost just didn't even keep track of these summoning points just because I was using my spells for very specific things, and I was gaining like D3 or 2D3 a turn, and by the time by round 3, I would finally summon something in, and at that point, it wasn't worth much. Anyway, here I think we can use some stuff for these cosmic power points. So you will gain some in their hero phase, especially with all your unbinds from Kroak and Slann. You should be able to at least unbind a couple things and get a couple points there. So you can use your cosmic power points in your hero phase for different things. We see this a lot in other factions where they build up this resource. You can spend it or you can summon, and this is no different here. So you can spend 5 cosmic power points in the hero phase. You can do this. You can return D3 slain models to each Starborne unit with a wounds characteristic of 1 or 2 that's wholly within 12 inches of any friendly cosmic nodes. Roll separately for each unit. So that's talking about your guard, your warriors, your skinks, and I'm sure I'm missing something else. I mean, like maybe chameleon skinks or something. But really, you're looking for those battle line units. This is okay. This is like an extra rally, but better. So we do get to return some stuff. That's nice. Not crazy powerful, but very useful. Oh, wrong page here. Okay. The next one you can do, 10 cosmic power points. More than likely, you probably won't have this in turn 1, but you might if you get pretty lucky. You can spend 10 cosmic power points until the start of your next hero phase. Friendly units affected by the Revivifying Energies ability have a ward of 5 up instead of 6 up. I like this in like a turn 2 play where this Revivifying Energies is on your Astrolith bearer. His ward save that he's passing out is a 6 up. That goes to a 5 up. So you've moved up the board. You know you're going to be in combat. You know you're going to be in the mix in turn 2. Now you're popping those 10 cosmic power points to give everything a 5 up ward save. Now, of course, this is completely useless if your Astrolith gets sniped. So keep that in mind. The next one, you spend 15 for Cleanse the Realms. Roll a dice for each enemy unit within 12 inches of any cosmic nodes. On a 2-up, that unit suffers a mortal wound equal to the roll that you rolled. So I like this one. This one's good, but it is expensive. 15 cosmic power points. You're talking, turn 2 maybe if you're going second, or turn 3 for sure. You could probably work up to that. And 12 inches is pretty generous because you're talking your Slann, your Astrolith, your a wizard, or the Realmshaper. So that's pretty generous. If you've moved up the board, you should be able to hit some units with that, and it could spike high to 6 mortal wounds. So it could do quite a bit of damage if everything's lined up. The other thing you could do is summon units, and you use the cosmic power shown on the table to do that. Same setup as normal, outside of 9, within 12 of one of those cosmic nodes. So the thing I like on here is I always like summoning things that have a chance to do something in that phase. What was this? It is into movement. Okay, that's what I thought it was. So things like the Terrawings, because Terrawings are only 8 summoning points or cosmic power points, and they have an ability they can use in the shooting phase. So Terrawings, I think, are a very good summon here. Bola's probably not too much. Ripperdactyls, Terradons, no, because they're not doing anything. Dart Pipes could be useful. Spawn of Sotek is pretty expensive at 16. And above that, that's like all like nice to haves. I don't know that I would build anything specifically trying to get those, but if you've got a lot of spell casting going off, maybe you could get some of those. That's a lot. 30 for an Engine of the Gods. Engine of the Gods is not good anyway. Don't save up for 30 from the Engine of the Gods. I like spending those on like Terrawings, maybe on some of the Chameleon Skink Hunters, if you have them, or using them for these extra abilities. All right, Starborne enhancements. We have our command traits, and these ones are for the Slann only. We have Arcane Might. They get to control up to 3 endless spells. Interesting. I guess that's good. I don't what when would that ever come up? In addition, when this general casts a spell that summons an endless spell, the range of that spell is doubled. That right there is what you would take it for. So, you're going to take this for that. I guess maybe you can control 3 endless spells per hero phase. So I guess you would probably be casting 1, 2, 3 in each turn, and then trying to hold on to those. So interesting. But the range of that spell is doubled is very good. So that opens up a lot of different spells that you can hit from further away with the Slann. So a very good command trait there if you're leaning into the endless spells. Higher State of Conscious is the next one. Ignore modifiers, so basically ethereal, a decent one. I think I like the other one better because Slans are on a 4. Usually you can get that higher if he's in the Realmshaper, if he's using all out defense or something. Like if you know he's getting hurt, you would usually end up not really needing that too much. I don't know. It's a good one. Never balk at ethereal. Okay, going on. Lord of Celestial Resonance. Each time this general successfully casts a spell that's not unbound, successfully unbinds a spell, or successfully dispels an endless spell, you receive 2 cosmic power points instead of 1. This one here is very good. If only we could take this on Kroak somehow. But you take this on the Slann, and now you're doubling your CP, CPP, and now you can really rack up those points better and be able to summon quicker. So, very good. Vast Intellect. This journal knows 2 extra spells from the lore of Celestial Domination. So, get him some extra spells. And the spell lore is good, so I like that one. If you're going endless spells, you're taking Arcane Might. If not, you're probably taking Celestial Resonance to get those extra summoning points, or no extra spells if you're taking a Slann. If you're taking a Skink as your general, I don't know that you would. Let's look at these. Wizard only. This general knows all the spells from the lore of Celestial Manipulation in addition to any other spells they know. So that's good, but like you're talking for a Skink wizard, this is only going to be your Starpriest, your Starseer, or the Troglodon. And I'm not sure I'm willing to make either one of them my wizard, and they're only going to cast one spell anyway, so you're going to take the one that you want them to cast. So, yeah, I'm not crazy about this one. Nimble War Leader. Roll 2d6 instead of d6 when making run rolls for friendly Skink units while they are wholly within 18 of this general. This is good if you can... man. Is there a way to run and charge with Skinks now? I know there is with Saurus. We'll have to, as we get through this, if there is a way to run and charge in, oh gosh, what is there? Well, if there is, this is useful. If not, who cares? You're not gonna. The only time you're gonna want to run is scoring objectives, and most of the Skink stuff is fast enough that you can get over there to it without having to go 2d6. Shrewd Strategist. Once per battle at the start of your opponent's combat phase, you pick one friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 18 of this general. If that unit is within 12, yada, 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 you can attempt to charge. So it's not bad. It's pretty good, but it's only once per battle. I always shy away from things that are once per battle just because you're theoretically paying points for this. Why are you going to take something that you can only use once and might fail? Oh man. So, or maybe this is an attempt to move. I can't remember what this was. It's cut off in this one. I'm sorry. If that unit is within 12 of any, but more than 3 from, I think it was a charge. But I didn't see that as very useful. I'm not liking the Skink ones. I'm taking a Slann one if I'm doing it. The weird thing about the Starborne command traits is that if you have a Saurus general, you got nothing. Because it's siloed it directly into Slann or Skink. So there are no command traits for a Saurus general. So if you're taking a Saurus general, you're going to have to take a generic command trait. Very interesting. I don't like that. We got our artifacts for Starborne. Relocation Orb. Once per battle. Do I need to say any more? If the bear has any wounds allocated to them in that phase, you can remove the bear from the battlefield and set them up anywhere wholly within 12 of a friendly cosmic node and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So, good, but it's once per battle, and It's at the end of the phase. And you're talking about your Slann. If it's getting attacked, I mean, in shooting, then this probably isn't going to help him at all. If it's getting hit in combat, you're probably already losing the game. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not crazy on that one. Useful if it happens, but it's once per game. All right, Prism of something. Once per battle at the start of the phase, pick one enemy unit within 12 of the bear and roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2, that enemy unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. No. Zodiac Dial. After deployment, but before the first battle round, secretly record the number of battle round on a piece of paper. Why do they keep giving us this thing? So you pick one battle round at random, and then you're going to heal, and you get +1 to save. Just no. Don't do that. Space Folder's Stave. Once per turn. Hey, that's much better. At the end of your movement phase, if the bear is on the battlefield, you can say that they will guide the arrival of the celestial reinforcements. If you do so, the next friendly Starborne unit to be set up on the battlefield can be set up more than 7 inches from all enemy units instead of more than 9. This one here, circle this one, highlight this one for your Slann. So if you're taking Dracothian's Tail, which we'll look at here in a second, where you have deployments off the board, this is fantastic. Because 1 unit per turn is going to get set up with outside of 7. That's fantastic. So, Stormcast has to pay 170 points for that ability. We get that on a artifact here. So that one is very good. I like that one a lot. It also helps if, let's see, next friendly Starborne unit that's set up on them. So this would also work for summons. If you're summoning something in, and you want to have them outside of 7, you can do that. Now, you still have to set it up because it's got to be Cosmic Node, but I like this a lot. I like this one a lot. All right, Skink artifacts here. We have Incandescent Retresses, always a great one. At the start of each of your hero phases, you heal up to D3 wounds allocated to the bear. Not nearly as good as the old Incandescent Retresses. I might take this one on like a Troglodon if I'm doing a Troglodon list or something. So he's now healing 2d3. But otherwise, probably not. Stegadon Helm. Add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target the bearer. Very good. In addition, add 1 to the damage characteristics of melee weapons used by the bearer if they made a charge move in the same turn. So, it's like, what am I going to add this to? Like what hero has a melee weapon, because this is an artifact, so it's got to go to the hero, not the mount. You're not going to want to put this on a Troglodon. You're not going to want to put this on a Skink Priest, a Starpriest, or a Starseer. You're not going to want to... The best thing to put it on would be the Stegadon CHief, and that'll give him a little bit extra damage. Really, you're just taking this for the +1 to save. Cloak of Feathers. Unit that does not have the monster keyword only. Aww. Our Stegadon with Cloak of Feathers is gone. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, add 4 to the bearer's move characteristic, and the bearer can fly. Yeah, I guess it's okay. Like if you need an artifact for one of your little Skink Starpriest or Starseer, gives them an extra -1 to hit. You probably don't really care about the movement or that they can fly, but +1 to hit or -1 to hit would be pretty good. I don't know. Nothing there blowing me away. A Stegadon Helm, I think, is the best one of those two. +1 to save. So, all right. Spell lore. So Comet's Call is on the spell. Oh, well, first off, hold on before we get to that little spicy bit. So Starborne has its own spell lore. They've split spell lore, not really split spell lore, but they put spell lores for Starborne and for Coalesced, which is kind of interesting because it gives you some unique things for each subfaction, but we also kind of see them take some of the good stuff and put them back here on the spell lore instead of on War Scrolls. So, all right, let's get into these. All right, so the first spell is Comet's Call, and we see that they have moved Comet's Call off the War Scroll for the Slann, Kroak, and Troglodon onto the spell lore. That's very disappointing because that was always nice having that as their War Scroll spell. It's the same spell here. Does D3 mortals to D3 units. If you roll over 10, it does, or 10 or plus, it'll do D6 units. So still very good. A great spell, but you're going to have to select it as your spell lore. So I think that helps that Kroak knows everything. We'll get to Kroak later. He knows all of this. It helps if you're taking a Slann that knows more than one spell, then he can take Comet's Call and something else, because some of the other spells are good. I think that's where you end up leaning a little bit more onto Kroak because he knows everything. You're gonna like a lot of these spells. If not, you may be using that heroic action to switch through the spells for the Slann, or letting him have two of these lore spells, so that he knows them. So. Because these are good. Comet's Call is obviously fantastic. That's kind of your go-to because it does damage at range, unlimited range, and very, very good spell. Next one, Topok's Beneficence. This one is good. Basically, you pick a unit within range, a skink unit, and they're -1 to wound rolls. A very good debuff. If something's attacking a unit of yours, it does have to be a skink unit. So you're probably not going to put this on a unit of skinks. You're probably going to be looking to put this on something else that's keyworded skink, like Raptadons or one of the, like a Bastiladon or something. You know, you're gonna try to buff something up to where it can take some damage. We also have access to -1s to hit, so you can pretty easily get a -1 to hit and a -1 to wound onto a unit, and that's pretty good for keeping something alive. Drain Magic is the next one. You can add 1 to dispelling rolls for friendly units and subtract 1 from unbinding rolls made by enemy units. This is a very good lead spell to go with, so that they have it's essentially a +1 to your cast, but not really, because it's going to make it harder for them to unbind it. It is nice that this doesn't say like other units than who casts this. So this does, if you cast them with a Slann or Kroak first, this does help you out for the rest of your spell casts. And it helps you out in there in the next hero phases. You're going to be dispelling better. Mystical, Drain Magic is kind of like, this is like the Sacred Asterisms basically, but they've moved one of those things onto our spell lore. All right, Mystical Unforging. This one was that always tantalizing spell in the last book. Now this one is incredible. So, casting value of 8, range of 12. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within range and visible to the caster. Until the start of your next hero phase, the rend characteristic of that unit's weapon is treated as blank. They have no rend. So, you take their hard-hitting unit that's coming in with like 3 rend or something, and poof, they're at no rend. That's amazing. Very, very powerful. It is short range, though. But, we got ways to make that longer. Stellar Tempest is same as before, very good at killing hordes and long range. Great spell to take care of hordes. Here's our spell lore for the Skink Wizards. Cosmic Crush is a spell that has a casting value of 7, range of 12. Pick one enemy unit within range, visible. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of the models in that unit. For each roll that equals or exceeds that unit save characteristics, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. One of those kind of things that's very good against low, like very good save hordes, which there's some of those, but not a whole lot, to be honest. So kind of a weird mix here. Not my favorite one. Celestial Harmony. Pick one Seraphon unit wholly within range, casting value of 10 up. You pick every one. Until your next hero phase, units picked have a bravery characteristic of 10. So here's that dumb thing they've done where they've taken what used to be a core rule that we had and thrown it onto something else. So now we have to cast a spell to get bravery of 10. Now you can get this on a lot of people because it has a high range, but you still got to cast it, and you may want to be using those spell casts for other things. So it's frustrating. All right, Speed of Huanche. This is a good one. Successfully cast pick one Kroxigor or Skink unit. That's not a monster. Why? Wholly within range, visible to caster. That unit can make a normal move. Any movement that's out of phase is just fantastic. So this is a nice use of a spell here to get you some extra movement. Kroxigor are pretty slow, so it gets Kroxigor moving. This would really help Raptadons, so they're already pretty fast. Now they're going to be even faster. You're talking about like Ripperdactyls or your Salamanders or, you know, anything skink keyword. Bastiladon, no, Bastiladon wouldn't work because it's a monster. But movement out of phase, great stuff there. All right, our Starborne constellations. Starborne constellations, Dracothian's Tail. I think this is a good change. I like this one a lot. During deployment, instead of setting up a Dracothian's Tail unit on the battlefield, you can place it to one side and say that's set up on a temple ship as a reserve unit. You can set up one unit on the temple ship for each Dracothian's Tail unit you have set up on the battlefield. At the end of your movement phase, you can set up one or more of the reserve units on the temple ship on the battlefield, wholly within 12 of friendly cosmic node, and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So, a good Dracothian Tail ability there basically lets you set up half your units off the board and bring them in. Now, they don't have to be only within a Slann or an Astrolith, so you got a little bit more flexibility with the cosmic node, and that includes your temple. So, no more worrying about the Slann getting sniped turn 1 and half your army staying off the board. So, that one's good. Fangs of Sotek. This one, Serpent Strikes. Fangs of Sotek army can use the redeploy command ability up to 3 times in each of their opponent's movement phases. In addition, the first 2 times a redeployment command is issued to any friendly Fangs of Sotek skink units in a phase. No command points are spent. So, very good use of redeploy here, especially since we have some ways to make the redeploy better. It's like this is like tailor-made for your skink screens, for things that you want to get out of the way or closer in. Really, it just plays into that board control mechanic that Fangs of Sotek is going to like. Very good for MSU units of skinks. You know, you got 3 small units of skinks. You can redeploy all of them just to mess with the opponent. And they'll be doing that redeploy even better than normal, as we'll look at when we look at their War Scroll. So, a unique ability there for Fangs of Sotek. Plays into their movement a lot. So, in summary of Starborne, is Starborne gotten better? I don't know. Probably so. I think Dracothian's Tail is a little bit better. I think Fangs of Sotek has a different focus now. Before, it was Fangs of Sotek was speed and skink shooting. Now it's a lot more board control. So I'm not sold that board control with MSU units is a way to win a game right now. But maybe you don't even have to do that in Fangs of Sotek. Maybe you can just lean into the teleports, lean into the, deep strike with Dracothian's Tail. You got an ability to get it within 7 on your deep strike. So I think maybe you've got some good alpha strike play here. You've got some good movement and board control without maybe just depending on layers and layers and layers and layers of MSU skinks. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. All right. So let's talk some Coalesced. If you've been watching my channel for very long, you know I love Coalesced. So that's kind of where my heart is. And I think I'm going to enjoy this new edition. It's going to be a little bit different than what we're currently playing. I'm not sure if it's better yet, but it's going to be interesting. So we do have our 2 subfactions, Kotal's Claw and Thunder Lizard. I'll look at those in just a second. But our overarching rules here are Predatory Fighters. Add 1 to bite rolls made for Coalesced Saurus and Coalesced Kroxigor units with the Mighty Saurus Jaws, or Vice-like Jaws ability. So a lot of the Saurus units and then the Kroxigor have a special bite rule. It's kind of like the Ogre Bite, where after they've attacked, every unit within 1 of the enemy, or every model within 1 inch of the enemy, can roll a dice. On a 6, it does a mortal wound. Not a lot of output, but it gives you a little bit of mortal wounds from these units that otherwise might not be able to. So you don't have to depend on a Skink Starpriest to get mortal wounds. we still will because that ability is still there. But this gives us some other mortal wound ability from the source stuff. So this adds +1 to those bite rolls. So now you'll be doing it on 5s instead of 6s. Gives you a little bit better chance at those. There are ways to get that even better onto a 4-up, and we'll look at those later. But it's not extra jaw attacks like it used to be, which kind of hurts some of like the big monsters and stuff. But this rule helps out the little guys. The foot soldiers lets them give some damage there. So Scaly Skin is still here. Hallelujah. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successful attack that targets a friendly Coalesced unit that has a Saurus, Kroxigor, or monster keyword. So, yay. This covers most of what you'd be playing in Coalesced other than the Skink and Slann stuff. So, pretty much unchanged. Very glad this stuck around. Scaly Skin is what was keeping us in the game previously. So, it would have been a shame if OBR had gotten Scaly Skin like they just did and we didn't. So, I'm glad that's still around. Let's go back up and look at the Coalesced constellations here real quick before we get into the monster sections, because this will play into that. So the constellations we have options of. We have Kotal's Claw and Thunder Lizard. Kotal's Claw, Savagery Incarnate. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Kotal's Claw Saurus and Kotal's Claw Kroxigor units that made a charge move in the same turn. So this is much better than +1 to hit, because we still have ways to get +1 to hit, and now we get +1 to wound, which is yes. So I like that a lot. You're going to be charging, always be charging. We now get +1 to wound. There's anytime you can get like a +1 to wound in this game, I like that a lot, because there's not very many ways to do that. So +1 to wound for Kotal's Claw is very good. That helps smooth out our attacks in source stuff. So you can generally get things pretty close to like a 3s and 2s or 2s and 2s if you're lucky. So I like that a lot. Helps out the source big time. Thunder Lizard, this one I'm not crazy about. Mighty Beasts of War. At the end of the charge phase, you can carry out 2 monstrous rampages for each friendly Thunder Lizard monster instead of 1. You're going to run into a problem here because you're going to run out of monstrous actions. There's only a couple in the General's Handbook, and then we have a list here that we're going to look at in a second. But if you have all monsters, you're going to run out of monstrous rampages. So, in fact, let's look at the monstrous rampages. It would have been nice if they had not coded these each to every single monster. Then Thunder Lizard would be more useful. So. Here we go. We can carry out a monstrous rampage for a Coalesced monster. Note, none of these are in Starborne. So, this is only Coalesced. The monsters, if you take them in Starborne, just, they don't get to have fun. Anyway, you carry out 1 monster section below instead of any other ones. So, in Thunder Lizard, you could carry out this and 1 from the book. So, here's what I was talking about. So, there's one specific one for each type of monster. That almost makes you want to take in Thunder Lizard like 1 of each monster, because then you could charge all 4 of these things in. You could do each of their unique monstrous action and then 1 from the book. Now, in every case, you're not going to be able to use every one from the book, but you can use these. Some of these are good. I don't know that any of these really justify taking Thunder Lizard, to be honest, because you can get all these in a Kotal's Claw list too, and you just forgo 1 from the book. So Gargantuan Jaws on Carnosaur. Only a Carnosaur can carry this out. Pick 1 enemy model within 3 of this unit and roll a dice. If the roll is greater than that model's wound characteristics, it's slain. This is fantastic for taking out like a unit champion, or taking out something that's very tough, or taking out a Hecatos, or taking. This is going to be very useful for a lot of things. You're going to take out that one unit or that one model that is vital to that unit. Very good. I mean, in the end, it's only going to kill, a model of a couple of wounds, but still pretty good there. For the Stegadon, we have Earthshaking Charge. You pick 1 unit within 1 on a 4-up. They strike last. That's very good. I mean, it's only going to happen 50% of the time, but still, when that happens, that strike last effect is very good, especially if you've multi-charged it so that you can attack it with multiple different things. I like that one a lot. Both of those are both good. A Troglodon, roll a dice on a 2-up. The Stench of Death has an aura of 12 inches instead of 9. That's a -1 to hit. So useful. Probably not worth really teching into because an extra 3 inches is probably not going to be that big a deal unless you just really, messed up your charge. Generally, you're going to charge into range to have those buffs on whatever you need. So, Bludgeoning Sweep. This is for Bastiladon. Pick one enemy unit within 3. That's not a monster. Roll a dice. If the roll is less than the number of models in that enemy unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to that roll. So you're looking for hitting something high in model count, and then hopefully you roll a high number. So kind of a weird one, as you're generally not going to want to throw a Bastiladon into like a horde, but if it happens to be in there, you can. This could go potentially well with the Snakes Bastiladon, where you would want to throw that into something that's not going to kill the Bastiladon, but that it can wear down with those mortal wounds. And then this would help you get some mortal wounds onto it. So, kind of an odd one with a couple of rolls that not sure it's going to make a huge difference, but it can proc some mortal wounds for you. All right, here's our artifacts, or no, our command traits for Coalesced. And we start off with the Slann. I struggle with this one because I don't know that the Slann, you're going to want it to be your general. I think in Coalesced, you have enough good Saurus stuff that you're going to want to put your command traits on your Saurus stuff, and we'll look at those here in a second. You don't have to, but putting it on the Slann might be a little bit more risky. You'll see why. I really like the Saurus as the general here because of this. But also note, similar to Starborne, you don't get any command traits or artifacts for Skink in Coalesced. Very odd. All right, Wrath of Eons. This is a once per battle ability for a Slann. You can add 1 to the attacks for Saurus or Kroxigor while they're wholly within 12. So very good to add extra attacks, but it's once per battle. You would almost have to do this like defensively. If you're getting alpha striked into a giant unit of Saurus, probably not the person's best move, but you can add 1 to the attacks. It's good, but once per battle for a command trait, I generally don't want to do that. So next one, Custodian. Pick 2 artifacts, and this general gets both those artifacts, and this doesn't count as the one that you get for free. So this actually gives you an extra 2 artifacts for your Slann. If I'm taking my Slann as a command trait, that's probably the one I'm going to take, because then you can load up on those artifacts, and we'll look at those here in a second. Master of Material Plane. General knows 2 extra spells. Very good for a Slann that needs to know some extra spells. Dominating Mind. This one's weird. Dominating Mind. At the start of your hero phase, you pick 1 friendly Coalesced monster unit on the battlefield and say that it will have its mind dominated by this general. I like the text here. If you do so, roll a dice on a 2-up. Wait, why do I have to roll a dice for this? Add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made with your melee weapons by that unit until the start of your next hero phase. So that's good. If the unit picked to have its mind dominated has a mount, that command trait only affects attacks made by the unit's mount. So +1 to wound rolls. Weirdly, though, in Coalesced, if like your Carnosaurs are already going to have +1 to wound if they charged. So this would be useful for a Troglodon or a Skink Stegadon CHief. So it has a little bit of limited usage here. So I guess maybe if you have a Carnosaur stuck in combat, maybe that could be useful. But yeah, I don't know. You could also, whatever. I don't like it. Here we go. Savage Commanders for Saurus. Prime Warbeast. Oh, here's Prime Warbeast. Remember how I said they've removed some of these things here? Unit with a mount only. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of the weapons used by this general's mount. Fantastic for a Carnosaur. But again, why does this have to be here? Why can't this be a mount trait? Or I guess the mount trait was not Prime Warbeast. That was the I guess that was the command trait for Thunder Lizard. Okay, so that's fine. So we're not losing anything. All right, we're good. So it gives us an option. I do like that on the Carnosaur for a Saurus, and it would be okay on the Aggradon Scar Veteran too. I think probably not the best one. Add 1 to save rolls. This thickly scaled hide. Add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target this general. I like this one a lot because the saves are generally 4 up on those Saurus, the big Saurus guys. So that gives them a little bit of toughness there. Or you could throw it on Oldblood to give him a 2 up. Next one, Vengeful Defender. And this is the one that I think I'm just automatically going to. Almost every time I've got to go to this one just because it's utility. Vengeful Defender. At the start of your hero phase, if this general is wholly within your territory, you can pick this general and up to 2 other friendly Saurus or Kroxigor units wholly within 12 of this general to make a normal move. So this is basically guaranteed always turn 1. Turn 2s and 3s, depending on the battle plan, you might still be able to use this. But turn 1, this is very good because your Saurus and Kroxigor get to make a normal move in the hero phase. So this is great for, everything. Saurus Warriors, they're already slow, so now you're getting an extra movement. You'll definitely be able to move up the board and clog up objectives. The Saurus Aggradons, they're kind of slow for what they do, so now they're going to move 8 in the hero phase, 8 in the movement phase, and then they'll get to charge with a +1 from their War Scroll. So a very good ability for that stuff. Kroxigor, same thing for them. They're slower than probably what you would like, and so this gives them extra movement so that maybe they can make their charges. Kroxigor probably not in turn 1, but so very, very good. Plan for this. I'm going to put this on my Saurus hero and my Saurus general, which is probably either going to be a Carnosaur or a Scar Veteran on Aggradon. I like both of those. But if you run low on points, put it on an Oldblood. Gives you extra movement. Fantastic, fantastic command trait. I like that one a lot. All right, on to our artifacts here, and we'll start with the Slann. And now remember, we can take, with that command trait, if our Slann is our general here, we can take 2 of these. So keep that in mind as we're looking at these. Throne of the Lost Gods, add 4 to move, and add 1 to wound. No, don't care about that. Crystalline Skull. This one is interesting. I kind of like this one. The bearer starts with a power reserve of 0. Each time, get ready for the wall of text in this little fun game. Each time the bearer successfully casts a spell that is not unbound, increase the bearer's power reserve by 1. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can say that this bearer will shatter the Crystalline Skull. If you do so, pick 1 enemy unit within 12 of the bearer and roll a number of dice equal to the power reserve. For each 3 up, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So, kind of interesting. This one's like your fun narrative one. I don't think you're going to really play into this because, once per battle, you got to do a lot of stuff to make it happen, and you still got to be within 12. So, let's say you cast, 3 spells a turn, and they all go off. By turn 3, you've gotten this up to 9. You could dump it into a unit and do 6 mortal wounds. Now, you got to be close to them. And if your Slann's that close to them, you're probably... Like, my Slann is generally not that close to people. So, I don't know. Probably not doing that one. The next 2, I like a whole lot. And these are probably the ones I'm taking if I'm taking 2 artifacts for this thing. So, a Kixi Grubs. At the start of each hero phase, you can heal 1 wound allocated to the bearer. In addition, you can reroll 1 casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll. So same as the Kixi Grubs was before. Fantastic. Gives you extra spell casting ability with that Slann. So take that one. Kotal Familiar. Once per battle at the start of your hero phase, you can say that this bear will be blessed by Tepok. Tepok? I don't know. If you do so, the bearer can attempt to cast 1 additional spell in that hero phase, and that spell can be any spell from the lore of Ancient Domains. So very good. So you get an extra spell. Now, if we were to tie that together, like let's say you did Master of Material Plane to where 2 extra spells, and then you took this Kotal Familiar to where you can cast another spell, and it can be any of them from the spell lore. So now you basically have quite a bit of power from the spell lore.
you've got 3 spells you can cast from the spell lore, and now your Slann is going to be casting a total of 4 spells. So all of a sudden, that kind of ramps up that Slann pretty good. We're going to look at some of these spells here in a second, but they have some good spells. So I like that combo a lot of doing Master of Material Plane and then Kotal Familiar. If you want a little bit better casting, you're probably going to do a Tixie Grubs, and you could either pair that up with Master of Material Plane so he knows more, or the Custodian, and then you can take a Tixie Grubs and Kotal Familiar and kind of do the same thing where you're getting an extra spell and anything from the spell lore. So I like that one. Some good combos there for good spell casting. And this is, this is like we talked about, the spell casting in Starborne is very good, but it can be very good in Coalesced too. With these right loadouts for a Slann, can be fantastic. Or just take Kroak. Our artifacts for Saurus get pretty spicy. I like this one. Sotex Gaze. Enemy models with a wound characteristics of 1 or 2 cannot contest objectives while they are within 6 of the bearer. So this is good, especially for... imagine this. Okay, let's scroll back up. I like this combo. This is one I'm mulling around in my head. Saurus hero, let's say a Carnosaur or the Aggradon hero. He gets to move in the hero phase. Okay, so he moves in the hero phase, and he makes his charge in turn 1, along with a bunch of Aggradons, all the way over into the enemy territory. So you're pushing onto their base. And now you've got a bunch of Aggradons in your Carnosaur, and now the enemy can't even capture their own. They can't even contest their own home objective while you're within 6 of them. So that's a pretty nice little spicy rule there. I like that a lot. It has a lot of usefulness, especially with Coalesced being able to control objectives and stuff. So I like that one a lot. Blood Rage Pendant. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of the bearer's melee weapons. So this would only affect the not the mount melee weapons. So if the number of wounds allocated to the bearer is equal to or greater than half the bearer's wound characters, add 2 instead. Just I hate that. I hate it when it kind of goes into that extra little thing there. I think that was the same as before. We almost always never took that one. Blade of Realities. This one is worth taking, I think, especially if you have extra artifacts at your disposal. If you're kind of teching into that. This one can be good. Pick 1 melee weapon. Improve the rend of that weapon by 1. In addition, add 1 to the damage inflicted by each successful attack made with that weapon that targets a hero. So a very good hero sniping weapon there. And you can kind of buff up that rend. Now, it only works on the hero's weapon, but still, I like that one a lot. So Sotex Gaze, though, is for me. If I'm taking a Saurus artifact. All right, spell lore for Coalesced and Slann. we have some interesting ones here. Now remember, Kroak can take. He knows all of these. A Slann, you could theoretically know up to 3 of these, and so that's interesting. The first one is the Earth Trembles. Well, first off, we don't have Comet's Call in Coalesced, so that's disappointing. But this is kind of like budget Comet's Call here. The Earth Trembles is a spell that has a casting value of 8. Successfully cast, pick 1 of the corners of the battlefield and draw a straight line between that corner and the closest part of the caster's base. Roll a dice for each enemy unit passed across by that line. On a 4, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Very weird, specifications here for this, but you can end up doing some mortal wounds. It's not bad if everything lines up just right, and you can cross over half their. There could be some deployments, especially the ones in the corner, where this crosses their entire army. So that could be good, where you'll do a lot of mortal wounds. So I like this one. It is a high cast, but it has no range limit and anything like that. Like Comet's Call, this thing, no range limit is great. So I like that one a lot. Empowered Celestite, also a very good one. Casting value 7, range of 18. You pick a Saurus unit, and you improve rend characteristics by 1 of their Celestite weapons. So this makes, Saurus Warriors pretty spicy. It makes Saurus Guard better. Like, take this with a Kroak and a big unit of Guard. Guard aren't going to be as good as Warriors, but, you can still buff them up. Put this onto the Aggradons. I think they have Celestite Weapon. I'd have to double check that, but that makes them better too. So increasing Ren by 1 is good. This would have been great if it increased, if you could pick a weapon, because I'd be applying that to the Carnosaurs' jaws just so we could finally get high Ren with that thing. Next one is Drain Magic. We talked about this one as Starborne. Add 1 to Dispelling rolls, subtract 1 from Unbinding rolls. Very good. You're going to cast this if you can. Itzel's Invigoration. Pick casting value 6, range of 12. Pick 1 friendly monster wholly within range. They get to fight at top bracket, basically. So good if you're taking some monsters. Very good for a Carnosaur if you need him to actually do something. Telepathic Summons. This one is weird. Telepathic Summons is a spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 9. Very short range. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly source unit that is not a monster and is visible to the caster. Okay, so it's Saurus visible to the caster. Remove that unit from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield wholly within range of the caster. So wholly within range of 9. Now you can increase that with a Saurus Astrolith Bearer. So you can add 6 to that. So it could be wholly within 15. Very interesting, like reverse teleport. Starborne, you send things away. Coalesced, you bring them back, I guess. So, you're not gonna do this turn 1 or anything, but this could be a late game thing. Hey, I need some reinforcements back at my home base or something. You bring them back. My Source Guard got too far away from Kroak for some reason. Summon them back. Weirdly, there's no restriction on that. This has to be wholly outside of 9 of an enemy. I would imagine they'll change that. Otherwise, you could do some real goofy stuff like summoning into combat. So I would imagine that gets an FAQ. Spell lore for Skink Wizards. This one is I can't tell what that's called there, but you roll a number of dice equal to the number of wounds allocated to it. For each 5 up, you heal a Seraphon model. So good for healing up a monster or something like that. It will help you heal that monster. Next one, Heavenly Frenzy. Casting value 7, range 18. Pick 1 Seraphon unit. And until the end of that turn, that unit can run and still charge later in the turn. This is where that run and charge was. I was thinking Starborne had access to it too, but it may only be Coalesced. This is fantastic. I like this a lot. So I'm taking this on a Skink Starpriest. I'm buffing up like some Aggradons or some warriors. Okay, I'm giving them the Venom Staff, and I'm giving them some run and charge. And then my Source General is going to let them move in the hero phase. Okay, so I'm going to get double movement and run and charge with a +1 to my run and charge from their War Scrolls. So all of a sudden, they can be pretty quick. At first, when I saw the Aggradons were move 8, I was kind of disappointed because I wanted them to be a little bit faster. But there's ways to get them all the way across the board turn 1. And this is definitely one of those. So a run and charge is fantastic. Tide of Serpents. I think this is the same as before. It's a horde busting spell. A little bit, the range is a little bit better. 15. I think it was shorter than that last time. But lets you do some horde busting. So, good spells. I like Heavenly Frenzy. I'm taking that every time. I think, the Hand of Glory was gone. Just notice that. Hand of Glory, reroll hit rolls of 1. Nah, that's a bummer. That was always a good one. All right. We've got some grand strategies here. So, Master of Order. All right, Seraphon, army only. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy. Grand strategy, if you don't know. You got to pick one of these. You'll get an extra 3 points if you complete them by the end of the game. You're generally trying to pick one that's fairly easy. Not always possible. Battle tactics that we'll talk about in a second. You choose one of those at the beginning of each of your turn. They can score you 2 points. So, all right. Realmshaper Guardian is the first grand strategy. You complete it if your Realmshaper engine in either faction. If there's no enemy models within 12 and it was not affected by Smash to Rubble. So if you're not playing your Realmshaper aggressively, this one will probably be fairly easy to get. I mean, depending on your matchup. If they have teleports or if they can get within 12, they're gonna score it. If you're losing the game, you're not gonna get this one. So, it's one of those ones where if you're handily winning the game, they're probably not gonna have any models that they can dedicate just to getting over there. If you're going up against like a bunch of Stonehorns or Maw Crushers or something, they're probably gonna smash this thing to rubble and you'll lose this one instantly. So, yeah, it's not bad. I like it. When the battle ends, next one, repeal corruption. And when the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy. If there are no enemy units wholly within your territory, that one's not quite as good as. Well, let's see. Defend with SARS is no units within. Oh, so maybe it's the same thing. Continuous expansion. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy. If there are at least one friendly Saurus unit wholly within each large quarter of the battlefield. That's the same as it was before. I like that one. That one's usually pretty easy to get if you've got 4 units left. So just get them into those areas, especially Starborne. If you can do a little summoning, Coalesced has almost no summoning. You're not going to take an Engine of the Gods, and even if you do, your chances of summoning are very low. So don't. Sometimes I would rely on my summoning to get this one. Previously with the engine, you can't really do that. So a little bit harder, but not too bad. Further the great plan. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you completed 4 more battle tactics, and each of those battle tactics were from the March of the Seraphon host table below. You're probably not going to take this one because it's too risky to lose one of those, and then you just further compound your losing the game. Battle tactics here. Stampede of Scales. Pick 3 different friendly Seraphon monsters. You complete this battle tactic. Each of those units runs in the following movement phase and finishes that run within 6 of at least one other the units you picked and within enemy territory. So many things laid on here. You're not going to take this one. You might take this if you were doing something goofy with like the Arca Sotek Bastiladons, but you have to be wholly within enemy territory. So no. Like if you could just run 3 monsters and do it turn 1, you might could do this if you were taking like the Arca Sotek Bastiladon spam list, but no, you're almost never going to complete this. And if you could complete it, you wouldn't want to because you're not going to want to run 3 monsters. They need to do stuff. Celestial Obliteration. Pick 1 enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this tactic if that unit is destroyed this turn by mortal wounds caused by a spell or abilities of an endless spell. This is one of those ones you take if you know you can pick off a unit with Comet's Call, Starborne, your Earth Trembling spell, or Kroak's spell. So this is fantastic for Kroak. If you know that you can hit a unit with inside the Kroak's aura with his spells, you're probably going to kill it. Then take this one because this one is automatic, almost automatic on that, unless Kroak miscasts. All right, overwhelming numbers. Pick 1 objective controlled by the enemy. You complete this tactic at the end of the turn. If you control that objective and all friendly units contesting it have the Skink keyword. So good for Starborne. You'll take this one for Starborne. You can if you're overwhelming something with Raptadons or Ripperdactyls or MSU Skinks, you can grab this one. So yeah. Apex Predator. Pick 1 enemy monster. You complete this tactic in this turn. That enemy monster was destroyed by an attack made by a friendly Seraphon monster. So if you go on Monster Mash or you have a Carnosaur or something and you know you can kill a monster, do it. Generally, that's a hard one to take if the monster's full health. I always hate it when I say pick a monster that has no wounds allocated to it because then it just makes it so much harder. But if your Carnosaur can go in and chomp off a couple wounds, take Apex Predator because you'll grab that one. Cold-Blooded Resilience. Pick 1. This one's interesting. Pick 1 friendly Saurus or Kroxigor unit within 3 of an enemy unit. You complete this tactic at the end of this turn if that unit was not destroyed, did not retreat, and was not removed from the battlefield. So at the end of this turn, so you want to take this if you know that you're stuck in combat, they're not going to retreat. So I don't know how they would do that if it's the end of your turn. But you didn't destroy them, and they weren't removed from the battlefield. So you're going to be stuck in. then you could take this one. And you know they're not going to kill like a Saurus warrior unit in this turn, but you're going to keep them in combat. Then that's a good one to take. Pack Hunters. I kind of like this one. Pick one enemy unit within 3 of only one friendly Aggradon unit. You complete this tactic if at the end of this turn that unit is within 3 inches of 2 or more friendly Aggradon units. So again, another thing where like you can't kill them, but you're gonna like multi-charge them or charge them with something else. It's kind of the clever girl battle tactic here. But again, another battle tactic where don't do too good. You don't want to kill them. You just want to hurt them just enough. So odd, but some of those are doable. So that's good. All right, that's all the That's all the subfactions and abilities and stuff. Now we got War Scroll cards. So let's look at the War Scrolls here for different units. I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster. You can look at these. Obviously, I'll include the link for all this in the description. But let's talk about what's different in this, okay? So a lot of Kroak is the same. He knows all the spells, but only from whichever army you're in. That would have been sweet if he knew everything. A lot of the same kind of stuff he can cast through the Arcane Vassal. He's got this weird melee attack, which is weird. Don't ever get him into melee. He also does his Dead by Innumerable Ages, which is just, it's good until it's not. I mean, in general, it's a good ability. Don't get me wrong. He's hard to kill unless you put a ton of damage into him, and then he still has a chance to heal it all. So. Kroak is still very difficult to kill, especially because you're going to have guard with him. So, he still gets you more command points. He's +2 to casting and unbinding and dispelling. You can't get him quite as high on the casting as you used to because you don't have the Sacred Asterisms anymore, but you can still get him up there pretty good. He's got this golden mask thing that you can apply a Strike Last effect to, which is a good spell. But because you've got 4 spells, you're probably not going to use it that often unless you know that you're going to be charging into something with multiple units and you're not going to kill it with your first unit. Then you'd probably use it. That would be better than like a D3 Mortal Wounds or something. But he does have Celestial Deliverance too. The range went up 2 inches, so instead of being 10, it's 12 now. That's good because you're going to add... Kroak might as well just have been given the Astrolith banners points and the abilities, but they continually want us to take the Astrolith to get sniped and make Kroak worthless. So, Astrolith will increase the range of the spell by 6 inches, which is good. It's a spammable spell. You can cast it up to 3 times. And it actually gets... Oh, it's not just 3 times. This unit can attempt to cast a spell multiple times in your hero phase. Ooh, I didn't catch that the first time I read that. So you can cast this 4 times now. Nice. And it doesn't get harder each time. So that is good too. So Kroak is, man, I just had, now I got to rethink everything. No, I like that now. Kroak is going to do more damage there. He's 395 points, so he is cheaper than what he used to be, but so good stuff there. Doesn't have Comet's Call, so you are kind of freed up from that on his War Scroll. You still want to cast it if you have the ability to, but his Celestial Deliverance is better. And critically knows all the spells. So good, great caster. You want to take him if you got the points. Slann. Slann here he's got some more wounds. He's got 9 wounds now, which is kind of nice. Still does 3 spells, still unbinds, still does, anywhere on the board. So wait, does he do anywhere on the board? I better check that. Let's see. No. All right. I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, yeah, it does say over there Master of Orders. I was like, I'm going crazy here. All right, it does say anywhere on the board. I was like, man, if it doesn't do anywhere on the board, this guy's dead. No, he still can unbind anywhere on the board, which is critical. Still +1 to cast. has lost his Comet's Call, so you only get that in Starborne now. That's a pretty big bummer. Celestial Equilibrium is add 1 to casting rolls for friendly wizards other than the caster. So that's the one that's on the War Scroll now. Kind of interesting that one gets moved to the War Scroll. We used to have that as a spell lore, so it helps out your other casters, but not the Slann himself. So shame. Shield of the Old Ones is a new one here. Has a casting value of 7. The caster has a ward of 4 against mortal wounds until your next hero phase. So this is a good one. Part of the problem with the Slann is you were always running out of stuff to cast. I don't think that's going to be the problem now because our spell lore's gotten better and because you can kit out a Slann to know more spells. But he's going to take Comet's Call as his known spell. I mean, obviously he's going to take that. But then you can also do Shield of the Old Ones. It's a good one, a good defensive spell for him to take to make sure he doesn't get taken off the board. But that 9 wounds is big because that will help him stay alive longer with the 9 wounds. But add a 4-up ward against mortal wounds on there, and he should stick around a little bit longer than normal. So Slann, good improvement there. I think he might be a few points cheaper too. But that's because he lost Comet's Call. All right, Carnosaur. We're not going in any. This may be in. No, it's not alphabetical order. I don't know what order this is in. This is just in the order they're in the PDF that my buddy Mike made for us. So he just collated it. Somebody else leaked it. So don't go looking to take out Mike GW. Anyway, Carnosaur here has 15 wounds now. Nice. Still has a 4-up save, 10-inch move. One of the biggest changes here is that the brackets for all the monsters, but for the Carnosaur specifically also, they don't bracket as quickly. So they have to take 5 wounds first before they start bracketing. And you're not down to that horrendous bracket until they're almost dead. So that's a good change. We needed the brackets to be moved down a little bit, so that's good. A lot of the stuff is the same. All the weapons are the same, I think. Massive Jaws is the same. But the Carnosaur, both of them, have lost some stuff here. And so they've lost a lot of the extra things that you could buff the jaws and forelimbs with. So they're kind of stuck on the same profile they have here, which is a shame. So one of the rules they have, Blood Frenzy, which was always good because you could run and charge with this if it killed anything, is not that way anymore. If any models are slain by wounds caused by attacks for the rest of the battle, this unit is Blood Frenzied. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with this unit's mount while it's Blood Frenzied. So the Saurus Carnosaur is already going to be +1 to wound because of Kotal's Claw. I guess if you're taking this in Thunder Lizard or you're not charging with it for some reason, it's got stuck in, then that helps. So it's not completely useless, but it is a little redundant with what we already have. Terror, enemy units cannot receive Inspiring Presence command while they're within 3. We see this with a lot of units nowadays. Inspiring Presence is getting shut down a lot these days. So don't rely on Inspiring Presence in this game anymore because there's so many things that will shut it down. Source Oldblood on Carnosaur is a nice one to add that one to. Ancient Warlord, this unit can issue the same command up to 2 times in the same phase. If they do so, each command must be received by a friendly Seraphon unit. No command point is spent on the second time this unit issues that command. So, very cool. You could do, and this is in the same phase. This can happen anytime. So this is just on the War Scroll. It's basically a free command point, but critically, you can issue the same command multiple times. So you're talking like auto run. You're talking about all out defense, all out attack. That comes into play with a lot of things. So I'm liking this where you're running or you're moving Aggradons up the board and you need +1 to attack. You can give it to both of them with this Ancient Warlord trait, or you can give it to yourself and somebody else. So very good ability there. I like that one a lot. Jaws are still doing 5 damage. Oh, they got rend. They got -2 rend. I forgot to mention that. So we finally got -2 rend on the Jaws. Should be -3. We can just start complaining now. It should be -3. Never happy, right? So -2 on the Jaws is great though. Still hits on 4s. Come on. And Critically, we don't get extra attacks from the jaws because of Coalesce anymore with this massive jaws, so that's kind of disappointing. But I like the improvements of the Carnosaur. It's not like a huge damage dealer, but it's a little bit better now, and I like it. So the other Carnosaur is somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. The Scar Veteran on Carnosaur, the same profile, just no shooting attacks, but everything else is the same. What it does, its special ability, Maim and Tear. At the end of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll the number of dice equal to the number of wounds allocated to that enemy unit. For each 5 up, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So, just a little way to get an extra mortal wounds through. If you, let's say you got, 10 damage through, you're going to roll 10 dice. You're going to do a couple of mortal wounds. It's not a ton, but it does help you get a little bit more damage through. I would have liked to have seen the Scar Veteran do something to help out the other Saurus stuff. Both of these guys, nothing like real special to help out the Saurus. Now, the Oldblood can give an extra command ability. That's nice. But really nothing that you're looking at and going, okay, I'm going to build this list with these Carnosaurs so it can buff this unit. Especially the Scar Veteran. The Scar Veteran is really not going to buff anybody. So, the Oldblood you can, I think, add to list with a specific purpose of using those command abilities, but it's not like you're saying, look, I'm going to pair this up with the Warriors, and it's going to be a great combination. So I would have liked to have seen that. That's kind of a little disappointing that they don't have anything specifically towards like Saurus to use to buff them up. Oh, well, it is what it is. The Stegadon CHief is, I think, probably one of my most disappointed changes here. Not a lot has changed, but what has changed I think is pretty big. So the small things, it got 2 extra wounds, got better bravery. So that's cool for heroic recovery. Doesn't have 6 bravery anymore. All the attack profiles I think are the same, which is disappointing because, and actually this thing went up in like 10 points or something. But what's disappointing is what made the Stegadon CHief good was you would take Sacred Asterisms to give them +1 attacks and you could apply that to the mount. Prime War Beast for +1 to attack. Beastmaster for +1 to attacks. And then his command ability for +1 to attack, or his command ability. He could spend a command point on himself to give him +1 to attacks. So you could get +4 attacks to all of the stuff that this guy has, to all his mount attacks, and that was awesome. You could really hype this guy up and send him in and do a ton of damage. Well, you've lost all that now. So you haven't just lost 5 attacks, you've lost 15 attacks. So all of a sudden the Stegadon CHief is not doing near as much damage as it used to. And that's where one of the things I talked about in the beginning, where you see a reduction in the damage output, was with the Stegadon CHief and just all that stuff. They've all the monsters here, and anything that he would buff, they've lost a lot of that output because you can't stack those things on top of each other anymore. Everything's still -1 rend, even the massive horns. That's kind of disappointing. I don't know that you could give I'm trying to think back. I don't know that you can give the Stegadon any extra rend. You can reduce saves by 1 or 2 ways to an enemy unit, but nothing here to buff him. His everything else I think is basically the same. You do the 2 things that did change: Coordinated Strike. Instead of adding +1 to the attacks of a Skink unit, this unit can now issue a command to a friendly Skink unit without a command point being spent. All right, fine. I mean, we're already going to be flush on command points. Now I don't have to spend a command point. That's a much worse ability than +1 to attacks. Just much, much worse. Imagine +1 attacks. Like if I could take this into a Starborne army and add extra attacks to the Raptadons, it'd just be a great combination. But no, you can't get to do that this time. So that was disappointing. The other one is Steadfast Majesty. Add 3 to bravery characteristics of friendly Skink units that do not have Stegadon keyword while they are wholly within 12 of any friendly units with this ability. So you can add some bravery to things, the the Skinks and whatnot. So that helps out a little bit with the Starborne, but it's definitely not worth taking this Stegadon CHief. I just think there's things that are going to be worth more for the point cost in this now that he's lost not all of it, but a lot of his attack ability and his unique command abilities. The same thing with the Stegadons. We won't go over the Stegadons, but they haven't changed a whole lot. Is it the next slide? No. They haven't changed a whole lot. There's the other Stegadon. Gone up 2 wounds. But other than that, it's basically the same. Oh, no, there is one thing to talk about. The Skink War Party. This unit counts as 10 for the purpose of contesting objectives. Like, this is literally all you're going to be taking it for. Like, it still has its shots, which are good. You know, they can hit. It can still do some, stampede damage when it charges. It can still do some melee, but it's gone up in points. It's gone up to 300 points now. That's a lot for this unit. It might have some play. There might be something goofy where you could take like a bunch of Stegadons and like a Stegageddon and you're just trying to crush down on an objective and hold that objective. Maybe in like a Kotal's Claw list, you have your warrior contingency to hold one objective, then you send some Stegadons over to another one. I don't think it's gonna be worth that much. Maybe you take one just for the shots to do some harassing damage, to do some charges, to do some monstrous action, and they're not terrible in combat, but I think they've lost some shine. All right. The Troglodon is an interesting unit now. All of a sudden, I'm eyeing this Troglodon. It got some more wounds. It's up to 14 wounds. A lot of the attacks got a little bit better. Okay, so the Venomous Jaws now do 3 damage. They don't hit that exceptionally well. Forelimbs are okay, doing 2 damage. But what I think you would take this for is it can be difficult to kill, because it still does its healing. It's a monster, and Coalesce, it can be difficult. But the Stench of Death is pretty good. I like this. So Stench of Death down here in the middle, it says subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units within 9 of any friendly units with this ability. So this is a great debuff piece. It's a wizard. It can cast 1 spell. Now, it doesn't have Comet's Call anymore. But it has some utility in that it's a skink wizard, and it has this aura of -1 to hit. So you pop this down behind a giant block of warriors that you're going to hold an objective with. Those warriors on the contesting the objective have a 3-up save now. You've hit them with Mystic Shield, so they're at 2-up. They're -1 damage. They have a -1 to their hit rolls for anything coming into them because of the Stench of Death, and there are ways to get -1 wound onto the enemy. So you can get this can be part of your strategy to kind of debuff and stay alive. So not too shabby. I like this one. Also, its monster's action extends that out to 12. So a pretty big bubble there for either one of those. It has the same terror. Enemy units can't use Inspiring Presence when they're in combat with them. Venomous Spittle, this one is better. If you roll a 6, it's going to be 2 damage for mortal wounds. So that's nice. And then its spell here. Check out this spell. I feel like this has some interesting play, but it could backfire. So Primordial Mire is a spell that has a casting value of 7, range of 12. It successfully casts, pick 1 objective or terrain feature within range, invisible to the caster. Until your next hero phase, units within 3 of that objective or terrain feature cannot run or retreat and must half the result of any charge rolls. So, and the spell has no effect on skink units or units that can fly. So, situational. I don't know that you take this very often or use this very often, but it could be useful if, like, you're playing your Realmshaper aggressively. You throw that out there, and it kind of dissuades those from charging you because it's gonna reduce their charge. Now it's easy to get away from because they just had to be outside of 3 of whatever terrain piece it is, but it could be useful. So an interesting spell. Not great, but interesting and might come in handy occasionally. I think you're taking the Troglodon for that -1 to hit aura. That's what you're taking it for. Quite good. Next up, we got some Saurus Foot Heroes. Does a little bit better damage now. Kind of that standard, melee heat foot hero attacks and stuff. So nothing to write home about, but decent. What it does do, if it fights, you can immediately fight with some Saurus warriors or guard. That's good. Generally, you don't want these guys fighting, but if they do, you can get them in there and fight with your warriors. Wrath of the Seraphon. This one is what you'd take the Oldblood for, and I'm glad that they finally gave the Oldblood a purpose on the table. I like this a lot. If you're taking warriors, you probably want an Oldblood. So what you do is, in the combat phase, if this unit issues all-out attack command to a friendly warriors or Saurus guard, in addition to the effect of the command ability, which is +1 to attack, you add 1 to wound, or +1 to hit. I'm sorry. +1 to hit. You add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons until the end of that phase. So, all-out attack gives you +1 to hit and +1 to wound. That's great. Now, what you could do is you can pair this up with Leadership of the Alpha. My brain's drawn a blank. The Galatian Veteran things that you can take, enhancements. So Leadership of the Alpha, you could use all-out attack to 3 units. That would give 3 Saurus units +1 to hit and wound. That could be a corner case. On its own, this is very good. A big block of warriors with +1 to hit and +1 to wound all of a sudden is very good. Now, you're getting +1 to wound if you're charging with Saurus, so not always going to be useful, but in those cases where somebody's hitting you, and let's say you get to hit with these warriors first or something, or you've got plenty left and you didn't need all-out defense, shoot it, do it, get that +1 to hit and +1 to wound. It also has its jaw attacks it can do. Nothing to write home about. Astrolith Bear is fairly similar. +1 to casting roll for wizards within 12. Add 6 to the range of spell casts. And a 6-up ward save while you're wholly within 12 of this guy. So kind of the same thing here. Useful, especially you're going to see these basically all the time in Starborne. You'll see them always paired up with Kroak. And you'll probably see this in Coalesced if you're looking for a big block of warriors to get a ward save. So that's good. Ooh, Kroxigor. So Kroxigor are an interesting place. They are Battleline and Kotal's Claw. But I feel like that almost fights against their War Scroll. They're Battleline and Kotal's Claw, so you want to take them in Kotal's Claw. But here on their War Scroll, they have buffs if they're with Skink units, which you almost never want in Kotal's Claw, Coalesced. So they kind of war against themselves there. So I don't know. I do like Kroxigor, though. Okay, so let's look at the War Spawned. The War Spawned are 10 points more than the normal Kroxigor. There's not a whole lot different between them, and their damage is fairly similar. They do decent amount of damage, but they have some interesting rules. So they only move 5, which is pretty slow. You do have that ability to get them to move in the hero phase, which is useful if you're taking a Kroxigor heavy list. But 5-inch move is pretty slow for these guys that want to be in melee and don't do anything else. So they can issue commands to themselves, but if they have a unit champion of a Skink unit, so a Skink unit, basically any Skink unit that has a unit champion, can issue them a command, or any other hero. So it's just kind of a weird rule here that just adds complexity that's not really needed. So they can't issue commands themselves. You got to do it from somebody else, basically. The War Spawned have a -1 to wound rolls versus missile weapons. So this could pair up well with the Troglodon, so that if you're trying to shoot these Kroxigor, you're going to be, if you're close enough, you're going to be -1 to hit and wound. But -1 to wound is always a good ability. I don't know that that weighs heavily enough against the normal Kroxigor for me to take these War Spawned. The other thing they do, they add 1 to their attacks if a friendly skink unit wholly within 12 of them has been slain in this phase, a model from a skink unit. This is very strange because this is so easy for your enemy to not slay a skink model in that phase before they attack these Kroxigor. So you almost have to attack with these Kroxigor at the very end and have enough units that the enemy has to attack your skinks first. And within 12, just a lot of stuff has to add up to get 1 extra attack on these things. And they start off with 3 attacks on each of their weapons. The normal Kroxigor have that extra attack. So really you have to work really hard to get them up to the same number of attacks that the normal Kroxigor, the cheaper Kroxigor, have. So it's very strange. The one thing the Warspawn does have is that they do have extra rend, extra -1 rend, which is good. But I think if you do the calculations, it's not actually any better than the other Kroxigor. The other Kroxigor here, they still have the same stupid skink champions can use a command ability on them. But what they do have is they do have the sweeping blows for the Drake Ball Might and the Moonstone Hammer. If you get a 6 to hit and the target has 10 or more units, then you score an extra hit. So a good way to hit into hordes, not nearly as much damage as they used to, but also doesn't nerf you if you take a Moonstone Hammer. So the Moonstone Hammer does 3 damage instead of 2. I did the math, and on normal attacks, they're doing about the same amount of damage. The normal Kroxigor actually do a little bit more if you're going into a unit of 10 because they explode their hits, but otherwise they're fairly close to the same. So I'm tempted to just take the normal Kroxigor in case I go into a horde so that they can get extra damage that way. They already have the extra attacks. Even if you get the extra attacks here, I mean that does start to help, but I like the normal Kroxigor, I think. All right, Ripperdactyls. We got the Ripperdactyls. I talked about the Ripperdactyls a little bit and how I think they might be good. So they have, I think, a use. It's going to be interesting to see how they play. So, Bloat Toads are back. Let's look at the normal Ripperdactyl Riders first. Ripperdactyl Riders. The Bloat Toads are back. So let's look at this Bloat Toad before we get anything else. You receive 1 Bloat Toad marker for each Ripperdactyl Riders unit in your army after the players have received their starting command points, but before the start of the first turn, you pick 1 enemy unit to have a Bloat Toad for each Bloat Toad marker you have. Place a Bloat Toad marker next to that enemy unit. Okay? So, you can mark units. Now, this is good because the Bloat Toad actually isn't a unit on the board anymore that can be run away from. So, you just mark a unit. Okay? And in the combat phase, when you bring these Ripperdactyls down, you can add 1 to hit and wound rolls if, just for the jaws, if that unit is marked by the Bloat Toad. So you're probably going to want, a couple units of riders, mark a couple different units, and then you have your choice of what to bring your Ripperdactyl riders into. The attacks aren't terrible. They have 5 total attacks each, so you're looking at, 15 total attacks. The attack profiles are pretty bad. It's only decent once you add in the +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So with the Bloat Toads, your jaws are 3s and 2s, -1 rend 2 damage, which isn't shabby. That's 9 total attacks, doing a possible 18 damage if everything got through. So it's not shabby, especially for the 100 I think it's 110 maybe for the price of the Ripperdactyls. Not too bad. It ends up doing some decent damage. The Moonstone War Spear isn't horrible. It can do once you get down to 3s and 3s. You'll roll some dice. The Ripperdactyl CHief has an interesting ability here, and this is what you'd take him from. In the combat phase, I'd add 1 to... Oh, no, that's the same Bloat Toad. Where is it? Once per battle. At the start of your combat phase, you can pick 1 friendly unit with this ability on the battlefield to call a Ripperdactyl Assault. If you do so until the end of that phase, add 1 to attack characteristics of melee weapons used by friendly Ripperdactyl units while they're wholly within 12 of that unit. So you have a unit marked with the Bloat Toad, and then you call out this Ripperdactyl Assault onto that unit with the Ripperdactyl Chief, and now you get +1 to attack. So your Tearing Jaws and your Moonstone Spears now have extra attacks. So you're looking at 7 attacks per model, and a unit of 3, that's 21 attacks. So you can do some decent damage here with these Ripperdactyls. Now, they're not going to take out like hardened units, but they can definitely take out things that are holding on to objectives, screen units, chafe units. So I think they could have a place where, they can take out those smaller screens and whatnot. They also have an ability where if you charge and somebody unleashes hell, the unleash hell only hits on 6s. So that's pretty good. So they have a utility in that they can absorb charges for you. They're fast. They can absorb charges, and they'll do an okay amount of damage. So I like Ripperdactyls. I think they might be back. I don't think you're going to build a list around them, but they are a good addition to your list. If you need something that's fast, has some utility, and can take out those smaller screen units, I like them. Not bad. We'll look at Terradons while we're on the Flappy Boys. And Terradons are, just blazingly fast at 16 inches. They're not going to do a whole lot of damage in melee. They have a lot of attacks, 8 attacks each, if you're doing bolas and jaws. But no rend, terrible attack profiles. Really, all you're doing there is looking for the deadly cargo. They still do the same thing they did before. They drop a rock for D3 mortals. You can buff that up to a 2-up from the Terradon CHief, in kind of the same format as you would the Ripperdactyl CHief. I'm not real sure Terradon Riders, I think they're about in the same place as they were before, just more expensive now. They're really fast. Their save is terrible. So if you need something really fast, you can take these, but I think I like the Ripperdactyls better. We have other ways to do the mortal wounds, and I think the Ripperdactyls offer a little bit something better that this doesn't in the extra attacks. A little bit better save. The bloat toad stuff. I have to do the math, but I don't see the Terradons improving any in this book than they were previously. So about the same place, just more expensive. The Skink wizards that we have are the Skink Starseer. This is the new one that's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but it is coming out. 2 spells. It has some abilities. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can say this unit will scry the stars. If you do so, roll a number of dice equal to the number of the current battle round. For each 2-up, you can pick one friendly Seraphon unit on the battlefield. That unit has a ward of 5-up until the end of the next hero phase. Very good ability, but it's only once per battle, and you still have to roll a dice for it, and it's contingent on the number of the battle round, so it gets better the longer the game goes on, which, if you've played a whole lot, these games don't go too long past, round 3. Round 5 doesn't actually exist. So it's good. You're going to be tempted to pop this in turn 2, so you can give 2 units a ward save if you're charging them in, or if you're charging some big unit in, you can give it, you can roll pretty reliably, get one of them a 5-up. So it's good, but I just don't know whether it's worth paying the points for the Starseer. Celestial Doom is his spell, casting value 7, range 12, pick 1, enemy unit. Until the end of the turn, ward rolls cannot be made for that unit. Just awesome ability, very short range. But this would be a great target to teleport and cast this spell and then Tunnel Master away. So if you're going to be hitting something that has a high ward save, you're going to teleport this Skink Starseer in, cast the spell, and then Tunnel Master him out. Just fantastic there. So I like that spell. It's a great spell. But also very contingent on who you're playing. If you're not playing anybody with ward rolls, this isn't going to matter. If you come up against Gotrek, this will win you the game. So Really just kind of depends on your opponent, which is, yeah, it is what it is. I like him. He's not as useful as he used to be. He doesn't have the... Oh my goodness, they took off the... I just realized they took off the extra command points for this guy. Why did y'all do that? So we're not going to be rolling as many command points. Did they do that for the Starpriest too? Yes. GW. So you can't get extra command points from this guy. He doesn't have the 3d6 charge. He's not nearly as useful as he used to be, but he does have some play. So given the right points, which I don't think he's quite at the right points right now, he is useful. Skink Starpriest is absolutely still auto include for most most armies. So can attempt to cast one spell, but the thing you're taking him for is the Serpent Staff. In your hero phase, you pick one friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 12 of this unit. Until your next hero phase, unmodified wound rolls of 6 cause 1 mortal wound in addition to any damage. So same Serpent Staff as before, which is absolutely critical to a lot of units to getting damage off. So thankfully it's still Seraphon unit. So you're going to be adding this to Raptadons. You're going to be adding this to Ripperdactyls if you want to. You'll be adding it to Aggradons. You'll be adding this to Warriors. So you're going to be adding this to just about anything. Won't really matter as much to like Stegadons and Bastiladons and stuff like that as it used to, but still absolutely critical. Blazing Starlight is a spell that gives -1 to hit. That's where we can get that -1 to hit too. So you could potentially debuff something to -2 to hit if you wanted to. Yeah, sure. Use all out defense or all out attack. You're still gonna be -1 to hit. So a good use of that spell if you need it, especially since you don't have the Hand of Glory. But really, I'm taking a Starpriest for the Servant Staff and for the Run and Charge spell in Coalesced. That's what I'm taking them for. Here is a huge disappointing War Scroll, the Skinks. The Skinks got a lot worse, and I don't think you're ever going to reinforce them anymore. They are definitely an MSU unit. Not going to do any damage in any phase. They're there for this swift and nimble ability. So the reason they've lost damage output is because if they've lost their extra shot if they had more than 15. So they've lost that, which means you're never going to reinforce them. Roll their shots, but it's not going to do anything. So take javelins now, I guess, because they have 4 and 5s. They do have -1 rend if you could manage to get anything through. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. What they're taken for is a scream and this safe, swift, and nimble ability. Each time this unit runs or receives the redeploy command, when determining the distance this unit can move, you can roll 2 dice instead of 1 and pick either result. So you've got a much more reliable redeploy and a much more reliable run. So their board control, their targets for the redeploy for Fangs of Sotek, for those 3 redeploys. And so you can really kind of smooth out the chances of you rolling that bad redeploy. You can prevent charges. You can do lots of fun stuff with that. But 85 points. They went up in points. They lost a lot of damage. They gained a conditional ability for redeploy. I don't like it. Skinks are a huge letdown for me for Starborne side, unfortunately. Spawn of Sotek. We have, I'm trying to timestamp all this for you guys. Spawn of Sotek. So we've seen one of their abilities, and that was the Fiery Maw. And I was very disappointed in that. It's going to be an interesting unit that I think it'll see the table because sometimes you're looking for that artillery slot to fill in the battle regiment. You want to stay 1 drop. So take something that might have some utility. So Fiery Glob, this is your Salamander, by the way. You can use a Salamander if you have one. Just put it on the new base size or buy this. I mean, it's a good model. I like the model. Fiery Glob, 24-inch range, 1 attack. And as far as I know, I haven't seen anything where you can increase attacks on this guy. That would be a nice thing. I haven't seen anything that increases shooting attacks. That would be nice if there was some way that you could buff this, like with a hero or something. But no, I haven't seen anything. 4 up to hit on a 1 attack is just horrendous. 2 to wound, that's good. Rend 2, that's good. D6 damage, I'd rather be D3 plus 3, but D6 damage is okay. But what it does is if you can get through that hit, get through the wound, get through the rend, and actually do some damage that doesn't get warded off, you'll subtract 1 to their save. So it can be worth doing that for that attack, especially if you're, this is just an add-on. If it's just filling out a battle regiment or something, then sure, take it. Hopefully it'll hit and have some fun there. The other one, Fiery Maw, it is 12-inch range, so that means that this is a good teleport unit or a bringing in from reserves unit, so it can still shoot there. Its attack is equal to the number of models in the target unit up to a maximum of 10. So you're going to be trying to maximize those targets. So you're looking for targets that have 10 models. 2s and 3s, -2 rend, 1 damage. So you're going to do probably more damage with this than you'll ever do with the Glob of Flame and Acid, but it doesn't have the extra ability there for the -1 to save. It would have been nice if that could have been hit on both of them, the Stream of Fire and Glob of Flame, but it's not. So that short range one is interesting if you're bringing it in for an attack. This thing still has a decent melee profile. 3 attacks, 3s, -2 rend, 3 damage. So we have lots of rend on this thing. Not a whole lot of attacks here, but it's not bad. I think it's 125 points maybe. So it fills a role. I don't think you'll ever spam them, and you can't reinforce them now. So it has its role. I won't say it's terrible. I think it when it goes off, it's going to feel great when you get that -1 to save. It's going to be, this is overpowered, but a lot of times you're going to miss on that. So, all right, we're getting down to the good stuff. The Warriors. This is what I've been hoping the Warriors would get better in this book, and I think they have. Let me get a drink for a second. They now have 2 wounds each, which is fantastic. They did go up to 200 points, so they doubled their wounds, but they also doubled their price. But that means that you can double reinforce a block of warriors to 30 warriors for 60 wounds. That is, 600 points, but that's a lot of wounds. That's a lot of density there for the warriors. So that's pretty juicy. They do have a 4-up save, but they have an ability, the Ordered Cohorts ability here in the middle, that says if they are contesting any objectives or wholly within your territory, add 1 to the save roll. So they should be, most game, they should be on a 3-up save. Now, that's the lowest you're ever going to get because it is +1 to save rolls, which is unfortunate. But it does say it's just contesting an objective. So that means if you have 1 model on an objective, this has a 3-up save. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad it's not wholly within an objective or something. So just get 1 model on objective and they got a 3-up save. So deployment, you're going to have a 3-up save on these guys. Turn 1, wherever you move them to, they're probably going to have a 3-up save also. So they're going to be at a 3-up save most of the game. In Coalesce, they're going to 3-up save, 2 wounds each, -1 damage. Can be quite tanky for a full unit there. Their command does actually have some good stuff now. So Standard Bearer has +1 to bravery, so they're going to be at a bravery of 9, so that's good. It doesn't do the old stuff where it was like -1 to the enemy's bravery. I think I'm okay with that. I think I would rather have that +1 to bravery for ours, and that's pretty standard for a Standard Bearer. The Musician, I actually like this a lot better than the reroll, the free reroll. You add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls with this unit if it has a Musician in it. You'll see this across most of the Saurus stuff. That is great because that means if you're teleporting these in Starborne, they only have to make an 8-inch charge. That helps a ton just overall. Warriors, the Aggradons, the Guard, I think the Guard have it too. That +1 to run and charge is fantastic. This is an example of where they took it from the Sacred Astros and put them on the unit. Thank you. I like that. The attack profiles here, I think you probably want spears. I haven't mathed it out yet, but to get that extra range, the 2-inch range. But really, you're probably going to be putting these in the Galatian veteran battalion to get the fighting in 2 ranks anyway. And in that case, you'll take the clubs because you get a better to hit. So, they're 3s and 3s -1 rend, 1 damage. It's the same as they were before. So they're not going to be doing a ton of damage. You can get that to 2s and 2s. -1 rend, 1 damage pretty easy. And then you can add +1 rend to that from some of the from the spell. So you can get these guys to 2 attacks, 3s and 3, or 2s and 2s, -2 rend, 1 damage, which is a lot better, obviously. So you can be able to do some damage, but I think these guys are really there for the board control, tanking, and wearing something down. Part of wearing something down is the Saurus jaws, and they have that jaw ability that we talked before. Each time after the unit fights, you pick an enemy model within 1 inch of these models, and you roll a dice on 6s, you do mortal wounds. So with an MSU unit, you'd probably have 5 models within range of this. On a reinforced unit, you might get up to 10. So you're rolling like 10 dice. 6s are a mortal wound. It's not going to do a lot. In Coalesced, it's going to be on a 5-up. And if you're near your Realmshaper engine in Coalesced, it'll be on a 4-up. So all of a sudden, that gets a little bit better. So place your Realmshaper engine, smartly. So Warriors overall, they're not going to be doing a ton of damage, but they are. You can make them do more damage than they did previously, and definitely an easier war scroll than having to roll for the jaws separately with a different attack profile and getting extra attacks from the size of the unit. Now they're perfectly playable in MSU units if you want them to run MSU. There's absolutely no problem running them in MSU. Source Guard are kind of in a weird place, I think. A lot of the same stuff as the Guard had, the Warriors had, same attack profiles, 2 wounds, but you only have 5 in a unit. So they're more expensive per wound than the Warriors are, and they'll do less damage. So I don't think you'd ever run a ton of these guys. They do still have the bodyguard unit, and it will actually apply to any Seraphon hero now. So they can actually guard your Saurus heroes as well. That's pretty interesting. They can also guard your Skink heroes. So if you're in a Coalesced army, taking a Skink hero, this will actually help them stay alive longer, those Skink heroes. So I think they are going to be played, but I was kind of hoping that you could, they would be tougher than the Warriors and do more damage, but be more elite. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. So they have a role, but I don't think you'll ever spam them or take a ton of them. They're there for the bodyguard role. Terrawings aren't much different. I don't think they may be different at all. They have the same movement, which is good, same save, and the same nerve shredding screeches, which is what you're taking them for, to hope to make it to where enemies can't issue commands. And it still says in the shooting phase, so that's good. So you can activate it in their shooting phase. Everything else I think has been the same, so we don't have to hit on them very much. They're good. They definitely have a role in the army, but probably not that. Nothing really changed much. Okay, Bastiladon. Bastiladon, this one is worth parking here for a minute. So Bastiladon has had some pretty big changes. 5-inch move is still the same. Wounds of 12 is up 2 from its base, but you had gotten those extra 2 in Coalesced. Or Thunder Illusion. A save of 2, and it never brackets. That is huge. So we do lose the 1-up save, but that's fine. I would gladly trade the 1-up save for a 2-up that never brackets, because the worst thing was taking a handful of wounds on that Bastiladon, and now all of a sudden it was at a 4-up save. This thing that was supposed to be the toughest thing in our army is now a 4-up save. So I love having a 2-up save that doesn't bracket. Also, the attacks don't bracket, but GW went ahead and bracketed them for us. So The Solar Engine still has the same range, but it's now only 3 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, -3 rend, 3 damage. Whoo! -3 rend that's nice. 3 damage is good. So now we've gone up in damage, up in rend, but down drastically in attacks. So overall, our attack potential, our damage potential is down, but it actually maths out exactly the same. A Bastiladon before, in the previous book, would do about 4 damage to a 4-up save. A Bastiladon in this book does about 4 damage to a 4-up save. So it maths out exactly the same as far as like math goes. But it kind of changes its purpose. Before it was good at clearing out screens, good at clearing out things that didn't have a good save. Now it's turned into like the sniper rifle of the army. So -3 rend 3 damage is fantastic for hitting those hard targets that have a really good save. A lot of things it's just going to go straight through. You know, -3 rend is virtually mortal wounds to a lot of things. So unfortunately, there's no way to increase attacks that I can find for shooting, and you're not really going to increase the hit and wound too much on these. It'd probably be worth, if you don't have anything else to all-out attack and shooting, to use it on that. Meteoric Javelin actually got rend, but why add rend to like an attack that's 4s and 5s? You're not going to get any of those through. Bludgeoning Tail is still the same, has a decent melee profile. But the Arc of Sotek is better than it was before. More attacks, still does the mortal wounds on hit rolls of 6, but at least now the rest of the dice have a chance to get through. So 20 attacks, 3-inch range, but 20 attacks, 4s and 3s, no rend 1 damage. So an interesting profile. It's gone up in points for that Bastiladon, but now I think Arc of Sotek, you may see the Arc of Sotek played probably more than it was before. You had some guys doing really good with the Arc of Sotek, but now that 2-up save that never goes down, so that thing is going to be a pain in the rear its entire time it's alive. So shove that up the board and make somebody have to deal with that. You can also, I mean, Dracothian's Tail, you can bring these things down in one of them outside of 7, the other outside of 9, and just create a alpha bunker for the opponent to have to dig their way out of, and maybe they can't get through these things that have a 2-up save. So I like the change on the Bastiladon. Unfortunately, in Thunder Lizard, you can't actually double fire a Bastiladon anymore, and so the overall attack from Bastiladon is going down. It's definitely changing a role. I don't think you're going to see him, more than one Bastiladon with a Solar Engine in any lists, just because there's not a whole lot of way to buff them up. But I think one has its role. So shooting with -3 rend, that definitely has its role. So I like the Bastiladon. It's going to make it into some of my lists. Aggradon Riders. All right, we saved the... looks like this PDF here is saving the best for the last. Well, maybe not best, but saving the new stuff for last. So we don't have these models out yet. We don't know when they're going to come out. So if you wanted to play with them now, you'd have to proxy them somehow. But the Scarvet on Aggradon is a leader, a 4-up save. It always blows my mind that the Oldblood on foot has a 3-up, and these big giant monsters with, the terrifying looking things have a 4-up save. So, all right, whatever. 8 wounds, 8-inch move, 8 bravery. It has some decent profiles here. So its spear and club have all the AOS standard to hit and wound, 3s and 3s. That's nice to see that on these newer units. The spear has -2 rend, which I think you would probably take that one because you're only sacrificing 1 attack over the club. So you take the extra rend. And then the bites, three attacks, -2 rend, doing 2 damage. So very good. What you're taking with this for is I like him as a general because he's cheap, 175, but also has an ability to actually buff up a specific unit. You know, we wish GW would have given that to us with some of the other Saurus guys, but this one has an ability to buff up the other Aggradons. How well? We'll look at it, but does have some interesting play. So both of these Aggradon units have what's called the Primal Rage, the Rage meter, the Rage score. And so the longer they stay in combat, the more rage they build up. Now, this is super easy for the opponent to play around, so I don't see this becoming very much of a factor. But at the end of each combat phase, you can, if there's anybody still within 3 inches of you, you increase your rage score by 1 for each one of these units. So that rage score basically gives you an extra attack for the bites and talons. So you get an extra attack for that unit. But if that unit is not within 3 inches of enemy units at the end of the combat phase, you reset the rage score to 0. So this is almost always going to be gotten away from in the enemy phase, or if something like if you do too well, if you kill a unit, then the rage doesn't go up. If they kill you, obviously it doesn't matter. If they retreat, that rage meter goes down. So an interesting kind of bookkeeping thing to give yourself extra attacks. I think it would have just been easier to just, well, no, I understand what they're doing. I think what they're wanting you to do with these Aggradons is get them stuck into combat and keep them there. And I think there's a play style that plays into that. Let me talk about that here in just a second. So the Aggradon leader, he can actually give a rage score of +1 to a friendly unit at the start of combat phase. So it basically just gives your Aggradons a +1 to attacks for the bites and talons. That's good, especially if they already have like 1 or 2 rage meter and you're bumping them up again. Either way, it's free. It doesn't cost a command point, so just do it. And so you want to take him to buff up these Aggradon Lancers. So Aggradon Lancers have a very similar profile here. You're looking at those bites and talons are doing most of the damage. They have the same command entourage that everybody else has. +1 attack for the champion, +1 bravery, and then +1 to charge and run rolls. So that's good for their charge and run rolls because charging with these guys is important. They're not doing a ton of damage. Now they do get +1 to wound if they charge. You can get them +1 to hit very easily, and you can actually get them +1 to rend for their spears if you need to. So that helps them out. They're not like killing the world here. They aren't going to be doing a ton of damage. So I think what you want to lean into is getting them stuck into combat and hopefully outlasting the opponent. There's a couple different ways that you can do that. I think you can do that in if a Saurus is your general, Aggradons become battle line. So you can reinforce them up to twice. So you can take this unit of 3 up to 6 and then 9. That makes them hard to get all those attacks in, but you'll be getting 5 or 6 of them into melee, if you can get them all into melee. But more importantly, you're getting them stuck into combat, and I think that's what you want to do with these guys. You can move them in the hero phase with that command ability, and this is on Coalesced. I think this is where they're going to shine in Coalesced. They're not bad in Starborne. You could still use them in Starborne, but I think they're going to shine in Coalesced. So you're getting the extra movement in the hero phase. So they're moving 8. They're moving 8 in their movement phase. You get one of them to run and charge if you wanted to. And then +1 to run and charge roll. So you're going 16 base with this unit. You're charging with a +1. Or you're running, I guess you could move one unit. 22 plus their charge. So you can get these Aggradons into the opponent's lines turn 1. And I think that may be the play style you go with this. Maybe not turn 1, but you're moving them fast in that hero phase, moving them in movement phase, and then getting them on to where you need them to go and getting them stuck into combat so you can start building that rage meter and make it to where the opponent has to retreat out of combat and doesn't get to attack with the unit that they want to attack with. So an interesting play here. Not like obviously like overpowered, like you might see something like Fulminators or something like that. They're not doing that amount of damage, but they are useful. I do like the Aggradons a lot. I'm looking forward to running these guys. I'm definitely going to buy some of these Aggradons when they come out because I like that playstyle with some of the run and getting stuck in. That sounds very interesting for the Saurus stuff. All right. Raptadon. The Raptadons, I think, are going to be the staple in the Starborne lists because they do have some interesting mechanics here. They have some shooting, they have some melee. Neither one of them are just fantastic. It kind of goes into the same thing with this whole book. Like nothing is obviously overpowered that I can see, but a lot of it's just kind of fairly balanced. And if you play it well, you'll probably do pretty good with it. But it does take some finesse to play it with. These Raptadons are fast, but they don't have a great save. And they're not killing a ton of stuff. But if you utilize them correctly and pick your targets right, you can kind of chain these two units together and do some good damage. So the Hunters are the ones that have the shooting, the lances. And with these guys, they pair up well with the Chargers. I think you're always going to run Hunters with Chargers because you're going to want that synergy between the two. If you're not looking for that, if you're just looking for fast screens, which they can be, they're inexpensive enough and do enough that they can be decent screens, capturing objectives, harassing the enemy. They can do that role. But the Raptadon Hunters, they have a little bit of shooting, they have a little bit of attacking and melee. That's not horrible. You're talking in melee, they're going to have 25 attacks total, so they have enough attacks that you can put on the Starpriest Venom and get some work out of them. But they have the synergies with the Chargers. You're going to try to hit a unit with the Hunters in the shooting, and that will give a buff here to the Chargers when they charge in. And they have a little bit better attacks that you can see there from the lances and the fangs. And then in response, if the Chargers are into combat, you can use this Deadly Cohesion ability to shoot again. Now, the shooting is not going to do a ton of damage, but it does enough to help a little bit. Not a ton. These are more like your finesse units. They aren't going to crush the hard powered defensive hammers of the enemy. The Raptadon Chargers, we were kind of guessing that they get extra rend on the lances and extra damage if they charge. They don't do that. Instead, if they're attacking a unit that's contesting an objective, they get extra damage. So once you get that extra damage, their melee profile is much better. That's 15 attacks from the unit. Doing 2 damage each. So that increases quite a bit better there. So a good unit, these would make good like flankers. You run 2 of these on the flank and go capture some objectives. You take off those weaker units with these Raptadons. And I think they have a role. I haven't figured out if you can you build an army out of these? I need to do some more thinking on that. I think you may have a combined arms forces in Fangs of Sotek and Starborne, where you've got MSU Skinks, you've got some Raptadons, you may have some Ripperdactyls, but is that enough to take out those hard units? Are all these MSU units that do a little bit of damage each enough to take out some of these big units? I don't know yet. Not sure. All right. The warband units. I don't know that you would take this. This is just not all that great. It has an ability that you can use. It's useful but it's so short range. You can shut off a unit from contesting objectives. It's just so short range. You can't teleport it. You can't even do this like the 7-inch setup to do it. So I don't know that those things are going to have much of a... Oh, these are coalesced too. I forgot about that. Yeah, I just don't know that this has a point here. And they're so expensive. The warband, it's like $290 or something. I can't remember, but it's not good enough. We're gonna skip that real quick. Hunters of Huanche, we can go into that kind of in the same breath. Hasn't changed much. Still the same. Deep striking, does some mortal wounds. They're decent for what they do. You have some play here with these bolas to do some interesting things, but really hasn't changed much. I don't know that. I didn't see them make enough of a difference in the previous Battletome to think that they're going to do much different here. They have a role, but not just wonderful. All right, let's see. Oh my goodness, are we just now to the engine? The Engine of the Gods has been one of my favorite models for a long time in Seraphon. This was disappointing to see the Engine War Scroll. So the Engine lost its leader role, which is very unfortunate. So you can't take command traits, you can't take artifacts on it. That's real disappointing. You can't buff up the engine like you used to. It's not a priest anymore. You can't have curse on it. You can't take arcane tome on it anymore to give like fun arcane vassals. So I feel like the Engine of God has really lost a lot of its usefulness. Not only that, well, it still has all the same attack profiles, which is fine, but the Cosmic Engine is just... I really don't like this Cosmic Engine. This text is real blurry. Sorry about that. But what you're doing in your shooting phase, you can say that it's going to harness the Cosmic Engine. So you pick one effect and you roll 2d6 dice, and that determines if the effect goes off. So that starts off good. I like that because you have a chance to actually pick what you want, but then you still roll for it, and a lot of bad things can happen. You can take damage. You can take a lot of damage and still nothing can happen. So you've gone from something where you roll and it's going to be random, but at least something is going to happen. Something useful most of the time is going to happen. To now you pick one thing and there's a good chance that nothing's going to happen. Not only that, but they incentivize you to not do anything. So they incentivize you by saying, if you decide you don't want to do it, you get to roll one extra dice on the next turn. So I'm going to pay points for this unit that I'm not going to use for a turn, just so that maybe I can have a better chance at using it the next turn, which will still have a pretty decent chance at not happening. It's just, this whole rule, I feel it needs to be rewritten. Why can't this thing just be a priest and just make these different abilities prayers and you pray for one of them? That would just be so much easier than this thing. I'm so disappointed in this Engine of the Gods. So let's say we're gonna use it every turn. We're gonna roll 2 dice. Healing Light on a power. So you're rolling 2 dice on 2 to 6. Nothing happens. On a 7-up, you heal D3 wounds allocated to each Seraphon unit wholly within 6 inches of this unit. That is like, for the things you would want to heal D3, that's like base to base with this Engine of the Gods. So not only did you make the healing worse, you made it shorter range. So unless you're like, you're unless you're nuts to butt with some other monster, you're not going to use this because just the chances of it doing nothing are too great. Maybe you use it if you want to heal yourself, I guess. The next one, Bolts of Azure Energy. This is your mortal wounds. You're rolling 2 dice on a 2 to 8. You suffer a mortal wound instead. What? On a power on if you roll a 9 up, you pick one unit and does the same thing. Well, actually no, it's a little better. On enemy unit within 24 visible to it, roll a number of dice equal to the power score for a 4 up. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So let's say you roll a 10, you're going to do maybe 5 mortal wounds. So that's a good ability when it goes off, but you're more likely to mortal wound yourself. Statistically, you're more likely to mortal wound yourself. You're unlikely to have this go off if you're doing 2 dice roll. You increase your chances every time you don't use the Cosmic Engine to make this better. And let's say you waited till this is probably what they pointed it for. They're going to wait until turn 5. Roll 5 dice. You have a power level of 25 and now you're going to do 12 mortal wounds. That's overpowered. We can't have that. Yeah. Nobody's going to do that. Now, it could go off and late in the game, this could make a big difference, but that means you're not doing anything with this unit the entire game. I just don't like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will prove to be powerful. I doubt it, but we'll see. The other one, time slows on a power score of 2 to 10. This unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a power score of 11, the strike first effect applies to friendly Seraphon units wholly within 6. So again, anything hugging this unit will get strike first. Okay. But more than likely, almost guaranteed, you're going to do D3 mortal wounds to yourself instead. Because 2 dice rolling an 11 or 12 is pretty rare. Now, this gets better as you get more power dice for this. But again, you're giving up doing anything with this model for the other turns. So, summoning. Can the Engine of God still summon? Basically, no. On a power score of 2 to 12, this unit suffers 3 mortal wounds. Oh, gosh. So, don't even attempt this with 2 dice, because obviously you're just going to mortal wound yourself for 3 mortal wounds. With 3 dice, you're still unlikely to get this. With 4 dice, you're 50-50 chance. Is that right? 4 dice, you're 50-50 chance of doing 3 mortal wounds. On 4 dice, you're getting a little better chance. On 5 dice, I mean, you still have a decent chance of rolling 12. Even if you were to wait all game and then try to summon one thing, you're going to get 1 unit of warriors or 1 unit of 20 skinks. 20 skinks would be terrible. Do not do that. You'd want the 1 unit of warriors. But just take the extra unit of warriors and just leave the Engine of Gods at home. Gosh. Everything else is like the regular Stegadons. A regular Stegadon is going to be better than this. You get your shots that you can do every turn instead of this Engine of Gods. So disappointing. I was really looking forward to the Engine of Gods, and that's not what you want to see out of the Engine of Gods. Bummer. And last but not least, the Realmshaper Engine. It's now split up into 2 different Realmshaper engines, which is pretty interesting. I kind of like that. Well, as always, they just kind of split our abilities into 2 different things. So the Realmshaper engine's gotten worse, but the Starborne one is basically the same. It does the mortal wounds to terrain piece. Very good for Starborne, in that you're going to put your wizards in this Realmshaper engine. I don't believe, can you put the Slann in there anymore? I don't know. I'd have to look that back up. The Slann has more wounds now, right? Anyway, you can do your mortal wounds. Same thing for Starborne. For Coalesced, we got an interesting rule here where we add 1 to the hit rolls for the Saurus and Kroxigor bite rolls. And so that means you get those bite rolls for the mortal wounds are rolling on 4s instead of 5s or 6s. So very good for like a defensive play. If you've got some big warrior units and you're worried about the alpha strike, put your warriors near this Realmshaper engine and you'll do more bites. It's not a ton more, but it's enough to make a difference. Deploy it aggressively. that's probably how you're going to be doing more often with this Realmshaper and Coalesced is blocking terrain, and I'm going to be moving up towards it with my Saurus stuff. So they also let monsters fight on full bracket. So if they're within 12, so that's nice. Helps out your monsters, your Carnosaurs and stuff. So good change there. Good change there. I like the Realmshaper engine change. All right, so wrap up here for this epically long video. I'm pretty sure this is the longest video I've ever made. But this was all too good to pass up, and I'll be breaking down these individual units more as we get to study this. I just wanted to walk through some of this stuff. Thanks for sticking around with me. Let me know in the comments below what you like about the Battletome if you've had a chance to look through it. Are you disappointed in the nerfs? Are you excited about the new units and maybe any of the buffs that we got? Well, let me know if I've missed anything or gotten anything wrong, because I've just been looking at this for the last couple hours, probably just like you have, and there's a lot more to discover in this Battletome. I'm sure of it. So, all right, guys, we'll catch y'all next time.